Hello, good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of epic and exciting racing action in the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup Season 1, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. It is time for round number 2 of the championship, and after what was an absolutely magnificent set of mixed conditions in Portugal at the Algarve International Circuit, we have made our way all the way around the globe and all the way to Japan. We have landed for the Fuji International Speedway, located in the foothills of the mountain or the volcano from which it takes its name, and home to the legendary birthplace of what was the F mark of Lexus. The V8 machine, of course, starting with the Lexus ISF. This is Toyota and Lexus's home test circuit, but for our drive today, it is going to put them through a tantalising test of ability. On the one hand, you have a 0.917 mile start-finish straight, one of the longest in the world, and one of the very best when it comes to slipstream focus racing, that barrels its way all the way down to a heavy braking zone and an open hairpin. On the other hand, meanwhile, you have an eclectic mix of 16 corners, where for our drivers, the aim of the game is going to be to manage apex speeds, where these corners are mostly sweepers to begin with, but gradually over time, particularly once they get to the final third of the lap, we'll see the apex speeds dramatically drop, and it's all an uphill run as they sweep the way for a whole multitude of low-speed corners. And for our drivers, finding the balancing act between attacking the circuit and taking it easy is going to be just as important as being the fastest on the straight, and also very smart on strategy, because here at Fuji, you need to be absolutely perfect in all regards if you want to come away to victory, and you'll never feel safe until you've truly made a breakaway at the front of the field. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in today on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action for this series on a weekly basis, as you can with any Sim Racing Collective series, championship, or one other event, and is of course on the official TSRC YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for the Sim Racing Collective or TSRC, and you can be catching all the racing action there on a weekly basis. And if you haven't subscribed already, we definitely encourage you to do so. But as we get set to go racing, of course, all your racing action will be brought every week with myself in the commentary booth. My name is Paul Walsh, and I will bring you all that racing action live from Circuit Side. And in terms of our schedule for today, as we are looking at a sprint race round, the first of our 2 sprint race rounds of the season, it does mean that our schedule's changed up a little bit. All the times, of course, in UK time zone, so it will be at the current time, Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. And what we'll be seeing in approximately around 3 minutes time, qualifying will get underway, 20 minutes in duration, or drivers out of the circuit looking to go for pole position, whereas at the moment they are in the driver briefing, and then after that it'll be the first of our 2 sprint races. The first one due to get underway at 20 past 1, and then we'll be taking a brief breather after our 20-minute race, where we get ourselves set up for the top 6 reverse grid of what will be race number 2, the 30-minute sprint, due to get underway at 1:45 this afternoon. Indeed, 2 races on the calendar. It's going to be absolutely brilliant, no doubt about it, and we look forward to seeing who exactly is going to come away victorious here in Fuji, and whether we might see a shake-up in the standings after what was definitely a round in Portugal that left everybody shaken. But without further ado, let's give you a recap then of the season so far and what we've still got lying in wait today. Because as we can see, as we take a look to our calendar, well, Algarve as well opened up things last time out at the Grand Prix out there. And who exactly was your winner in round number 1 in the wet? Well, it was spotty rain, it was eclectic rain, and it really was mixed conditions where it was either stay on the slicks or go to the wet and survive when the circuit dried up. But the one driver who found a way to be absolutely consistent and found the sweet spot where many could not, it was none other than Kieran Sharp, who was able to take the first win of the season. However, he was closely matched throughout the entirety of the day by Tom Davidson, Jamie Nuttall and Jack Southfield. And when you do add into the mix as well, what were the performances of the likes of Guillaume Hamling and Felix Smoggy, where it could have been anybody's race to finish on the podium, and it could have been anybody's to win. And Tom Davidson in particular will be the one probably pitching himself the most, given the fact that he was in control at the front. However, a late spin in the race opened up the opportunity for Kieran Sharp to take the lead when he wasn't too far back, and after that, Sharp was never going to say no to taking home the first win of the season. But also a special mention to Guillaume Hamling, who in the end started in 3rd place, but dropped back to 7th in the early stage of the race, and then he was able to recover very well to finish on the podium, albeit had an absolutely fantastic race-long battle with Felix Smoggy, and it could have gone either way between the pair. But today, it is Sunday, the 15th of February. Valentine's Day was yesterday, and well, you may have professed your love to your loved one then, but here we are to show our love for the Porsche Cup car today, because we get set on another Sunday, and on the 15th of February at the Fuji International Speedway, well, after this round, we'll make our way back to our conventional feature or main format round in a week's time, in round number 3 at Sebring, and it will be to Alton Park in 2 weeks' time on what will be the 1st of March. It'll be crazy to think February will be over then, but on the 1st of March, we'll be at Alton Park for another double header with the sprint races, after which we'll then make our way to Road Atlanta for our season finale, all the way on the 8th of March. So we've got a way to go, and talking a little bit about our host circuit for today, of course, the Fuji International Speedway, where its Grand Prix layout will be played host to our drivers and located near the town of Oyama in the Sunto district of the Shizuoka Prefecture of Japan. This is a circuit that definitely is not one to be underestimated. It's played host to a wide variety of series over its extended history, including the likes of Formula 1 and the site of the first ever internationally televised Formula 1 Grand Prix, and it was, of course, none other than the season finale of the legendary conclusion to the 1976 Championship campaign between James Hunt and Niki Lauda, going in the favour of the Briton, even though the Austrians seemed to be one dead set on taking it. But on top of that as well, it plays on a regular basis in the modern era to the likes of none other than what is the IMSA Sports Car Championship equivalent. That is the World Endurance Championship. Indeed, the two there do get mixed up every so often. We almost mixed it up there in the commentary booth. The World Endurance Championship does go racing around here, as does the likes of Super GT and also Super Formula. So it definitely is a circuit to be enjoyed, whether it be at a domestic, a national, or an international level. And as our drivers take it on, a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. And we can see the track map here for Fuji on screen. That long start finish straight there, immediately setting up the expectations that this is going to be a power circuit. But then suddenly when you get to turn one at the hairpin, hard on the brakes our drivers will go, break it all the way down from the best part of 170 miles an hour, if not more. They'll find themselves very quickly coming out of one of the lowest speed corners to then make the way into a set of sweepers. Through the King of Two, it will be into the left-hand sweeper at turn number 3, Coca-Cola corner there, and it'll certainly fizz things up if a driver goes a bit wide and falls off the circuit with it being off camber. As they then come downhill, the theme of off-camber corners continues initially. The entry into turn 4 at 100R, we'll see our drivers have to plunge downhill before they suddenly find the corner goes from off-camber to being slightly cambered as they head uphill through turn number 5 and into the hairpin at turn number 6. A bit of an interesting hairpin, in fact it's a very wide one and there's multiple ways to cut the corner, and you want to go as late as you can into the braking zone there, although you're braking downhill, so it's a deceptively early braking zone. As they make the way out, then it'll be flat out all the way through 300R, turn 7, 8 and 9 before they get to the heavy braking zone of Dunlop corner for turn number 10. There we make our way into the Dunlop chicane at turns 11 and 12, and next in out it's an uphill very drastically as they'll make the way through the blind right-hander at turn number 13 to sweep the way through nets at turns 14 and 15, and they're the very sharp left-hander right-angled apex corner, which also has a huge amount of elevation change from its starting point to its end point, means that everyone goes into nets blind and they've got to commit to it and do it on muscle memory. Should they get it right, then they make the way into Panasonic corner, the final corner, also nicknamed the Dastardly corner with so many racing lines it's infinite, because indeed you can skin turn number 16 any which way, and there we can expect 2, 3, perhaps even 4 wide, particularly early on the race, and we look forward to seeing who exactly will blast out today at full speed and lead the way down the start-finish straight, either to another lap or eventually to victory. But ladies and gentlemen, a quick reminder of the rules before we go racing, and of course because we do have our sprint format today, the rules will be slightly different in terms of setup. This is a fixed setup series as always, and setups are provided ahead of each and every race round by the Sim Racing Collective Administration. Fuel loads will be restricted to 55 litres. Now that should mean for the races today, we are not expecting any pit stops whatsoever, at least for fuel, unless drivers need to come in to change tyres, potentially if the rain arrives, although it has been looking clear skies thus far, and therefore everyone's on slicks. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, which sees all drivers out of the circuit, and they do have 20 minutes to set their lap, and there is no overtime in qualifying today. They have to get it done within the 20-minute window. Now, as for our sprint races, they will commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of Porsche Super Cup racing, with the race 1 grid being set based on the results of qualifying, and when we go to the race 2 grid, it will be set based on the finishing positions of race 1, with the caveat that the top 6 finishing positions will be inverted. So what that means in layman's terms is whoever takes the victory in race 1, they start on 6th for the purposes of race number 2, and we continue to flip that order until we get to the 6th place finisher. They start on pole for race number 2, and those who finish 7th and downwards in race 1, you guessed it right, they start exactly where they finished in race number 2. Now, drivers who receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 70 or more instant points. They have one faster pair available in each race should they need to use it, but hopefully we won't see them have to use it, and all race journeys shall be conducted post-round. But let's make our way back to circuit side. And as we do, well, as qualifying has gradually started to get underway, let's give you a reminder then of how the championships stand after a single round. And beginning with your Drivers' Championship here, and as we can see, Kieran Sharp right now leads the way for the Sim Racing Collective Esports on 51 points, 5 ahead of Tom Davidson, his teammate. Outside the top 2, it's then Felix Moggy sitting in 3rd right now, very pleased with that performance, ahead of his teammate there of Guillaume Hamling. And then we do have Mikel Estevez there, the Spanish driver, sitting in 5th after he managed to sneak his way forward as the race went on. The ZLT Momo driver then be followed up by Jamie Nuttall, who'll be gutted at the fact he did look to be on course for at least a podium last time out in Portugal, but it went backwards and the rain really started to prove very challenging to get to grips with. And indeed, for the first time in a long time, we saw conditions whereby it was not wet enough for wet tyres, nor was it dry enough to feel comfortable with slicks. It really was a precarious day of racing at Portugal, and that's why you're seeing so many names further down the order here compared to where they started the race, because they struggled in those conditions trying to adapt to them. Johanna Riffin sits in seventh place, the Malaysian driver there who came strong late on in the race in Portugal, really put some pace together in the closing laps when the weather started to dry up. And then we do see Marlon Schwab, Otto Karis, and then Martin Blankensteiner completing your top 10. Behind the cracked racing driver from Denmark, he does have his teammate on William Chandler, who's best of the rest. And then we do have a further point to Stefan Hutter with Edward Keziks ahead of Quinten van Wingenden, and Samuel Kremers ran off the top 15. And outside the top 15 with points to their name, we do have Joe Pinder, Martin Foster, Raymond van Zuttum, and also Mitch Woolerton, the Aspire driver there on 22 points. The last of those with points so far, but we've got plenty of other names who yet score any points because they may not have been on the grid last time out or saw the finish line, including none other than David Humphreys. And also you can add to the mix there a number of other drivers, including none other than Arn Solono, who's on the grid today. We're very pleased to see. And also do have Gurley Kunzabo, Leon Berkey, also Zach Selzuk, and also Liam Charles, Philip Kumlowski, and also Paul Sims, Pavel Grilica, and also Andrew Pine and Josh Millington, who's new on the grid for today. And we also do see that continued with regards to Jack Southfield, Glendy Dionysis, and also there Gareth Ronda, Janos Wenzel, Vladimir Blinkov, also Bobby Moss, Patrick Magowski, and Usama Kanani. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way into this round, let's give you a quick update on the Teams Championship as well. And what we can see here in your teams, your 12 teams, it is the Sim Racing Collective Esports who right now lead the way by the best part of none other than what is 60 points ahead of Cracked Racing. And it is DLR FP1 in third, ahead of the Flying Dutchman by only a slender gap of 4 points. But already we can see our top two teams starting to run away a bit. And then it's really the fight for third at the moment, with ZRT Momo there in fifth place with 37 points ahead of Keziks Racing. And then completing that top 10 is Connexus Motorsports ahead of Aspire. And yet score any points, we do have Red Bulls Racing and also what is Siboff Racing. Meanwhile, also outside the top 10, Asterix Racing with a little Asterix as well to boot. And we do have the Kuzaks crew there in 12th place. But without further ado then, ladies and gentlemen, with our standings understood, and indeed the story caught up to, and this qualifying session definitely up to speed, well, let's see how they're all getting on then as qualifying gets underway. But as we do see there, Jamie Nuttall making his way on around, and looking quite good at the moment, it must be said, as he roars his way down at start for this straight. What exactly is going to be the time for him, we'll see in due course. So those lap times are definitely now starting to build up, but as everybody makes their way on through, well, right now at least for Jamie Nuttall, it does seem as though he's the fastest of everybody. But then again, we could expect this qualifying session to take some time, and it's not going to be easy to put yourself on pole straight away, just because of the fact naturally as fuel comes out the car gets a lot lighter, and therefore you can deliver a much quicker lap. Albeit he, amongst all of our drivers, will be very aware of that. They'll be very used to the fact that on a fixed setup, you do have to be wary of exactly what's going to happen with regards to the car over the distance, and the fact that you really want to make sure you do not have to tow to the pits, because if you do tow to the pits, well then suddenly all you're going to end up doing is costing yourself what would be more time, and you can actually put all the fuel back in the car, even if you do end up essentially giving yourself a fresh set of tyres. So the normal game plan in these qualified sessions is going to be to essentially come on in after a number of laps, and in doing so, well, then we will see our drivers opt to put on a fresh set of tyres, and with those new tyres, then they can start to go for the ultimate pole lap. So we're not expecting it to be the best laps right now. You can expect those best laps to be much later on in the day. But if you're in the YouTube chat right now, as we do see Dave Barnes there, and we say good evening, or good afternoon to Dave Barnes, I should say. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, given the fact we are in the afternoon of UK time. I hope you're doing well, Dave, and you're all set for race. And do let us know who you're cheering on, if you're cheering on a particular driver, or whether you're just here for the spectacle. There's nothing wrong with that. And also, as always, what we do like to say, and to anybody who is tuning right now, who's got access to the chat but hasn't, perhaps they're a little bit shy, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi, for the simple reason that we don't bite at the Sim Racing Collective. The only biting you are going to see will be on the brakes. And indeed, anybody who's a bit late on the brakes may end up finding themselves going to the runoff area or to the grass. The barrier's not too close, to be fair, and therefore our drivers do not have to necessarily worry about that. But we do have some purple sectors coming in. Kieran Sharp goes the fastest of everybody now as he jumps up to pole position. That was very close there between our two drivers coming out to turn one. But as we then do see Arn Solono making his way up the order. So Solono looking quite quick at the moment as he comes on through. Your number 3 driver, well, we missed him last time out, but he's here today, and a very lovely livery car, it must be said. I think he'll be very happy with the look of the car, and right now he's looking good as he is only 2 thousandths quicker than Where's Kieran Sharp? But to be fair, 2 thousandths or 2 tenths or 2 seconds, it doesn't matter. Pole is pole, and therefore he'll be very happy to be able to achieve that. And all he's got to do now is try and keep putting it together for just that little bit longer. But that's much easier said than done. And, well, understandably, he's going to be thinking to himself he needs to do a bit more work. We do have a couple of drivers who've yet to set laps, including Johanna Riffin. And as Riffin makes his way around, the 69 driver right now, 9, there's plenty of time on the board. He does still have just under 11 minutes. But of course, bearing in mind, there is no overtime in the session. That does mean the 20 minutes is not really 20 minutes. Just for the simple reason, you two have completed your final lap or got your ultimate lap in before the 20 minutes is done. So you could say it's 19 minutes and 59 seconds. But trying to time all your laps to be that close is very risky. And what we normally see drivers do in such a situation, as Riffin goes a bit deep there, leading too much into the ABS, I think just test out how deep he can brake into the Dunlop hairpin at the moment. What you do need to normally see drivers do is essentially set it up so that way they have the leeway of around 30 seconds or so for their final lap. So they will target finishing their final lap of around about what is 19.5 minutes into the session, and that way if they do need to buy themselves some time to have some space out of the circuit to set that lap up, they can, or conversely, of course, they can choose to go a little bit earlier. But as Arnsolano makes his way down the line, heading towards what we turn number 1, he's currently on another lap. Is he going to be able to improve? He's improved in the first sector, but not in the rest of the lap. And, well, as we have seen Kieran Sharp improve, and Solano does not improve by comparison. So Kieran Sharp now has raised the bar to 3 tenths faster, and that is an impressive lap there on a 1 minute 38.82. And I do wonder whether perhaps right now, as Dave Barnes says that Sharpie has got this in the bag, well, he may have it in qualifying right now. But what exactly will our drivers be targeted here in qualifying? And that big, long start-finish straight, will we be expecting drivers to try and go all in for a bit of slipstream? Well, if you can find the toe, whether it's at the end of the lap or at the very start, or both, it would be highly beneficial. It can be worth about 2 to 3 tenths down that start-finish straight. However, the problem with trying to find a slipstream is then you've got to try and find it elsewhere in that, or really get rid of it. You might want it coming out of turn number 6 at the hairpin, coming down towards the Dunlop hairpin, as we are seeing here for Kieran Sharp. But beyond that, you don't want the dirty of another car in front of you, because all it serves to do is upset the front aero of the car. And whilst these Porsche 992.2 Cup cars, they do not have that much aerodynamics compared to more aggressive machinery, such as, for example, a prototype racing machine that you'll see around here, or even the likes of Super Formula cars, will be a bit of a discipline because of the fact they are open wheel versus closed wheel. The point being right now, what limited aero you have, you do not want to lose it, and that's where you have the absolutely huge rear wing on these machines to make sure they're as grounded as possible at the rear, as that's not grounded there for Bobby Moss, who goes around to the barrier and will toes immediately to the pit lane coming out to next bend, and that's how easy it is to get it wrong. Arguably the hardest corner of the circuit, Nets, at turn number 15, just for the simple reason when you come over the crest of that apex, suddenly you are confronted with the fact you go from a very heavily uphill corner to an increasingly flat corner at very short notice, and the rear of the car gets very quickly unsettled, particularly when you are driving a rear-engine rear-wheel drive machine such as these Porsches, whereby all the weight is over the rear axle, which helps settle the car down, but it also leads to a huge pendulum effect as you clear the apex of that corner. But we can talk for all the time with regards to what it's like to do a lap around this circuit and the risks and catfalls. But meanwhile, as we do look to William Chandler make his way out of the final corner, and then pitfalls there, not catfalls. Good to be. I don't know where my brain was going with that one. Well, as we do see the number 43 driver make his way on down the start-finish straight, it's about time we got on board with somebody. So let's jump on board with William Chandler as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Fuji International Speedway's Grand Prix circuit. So making his way down towards turn of 1 in excess already of 270 kilometers an hour. He'll go onto the brakes there, and as he does so, going all the way down the gearbox to second gear, smooth as he does to avoid triggering the anti-lock braking system for too long. As he makes his way now through the kicker 2, it's up towards Coca-Cola Bend at turn number 3. Here he'll look to his right hand side. It'll be a braking marker of 50 meters. He'll brake just before, and as he does so, chucks the car in into third gear and rolls it on out. And now down the hill he goes in towards 100R. Here, keep it nice and tight to turn number 4's apex. Let it roll a little bit deep, create a V shape, and they'll come back through 5 and up the hill towards 6 he goes. Looks to his right hand side, brake at the 50 meter board there. It's a very long traversal down towards the apex of the hairpin, mounts the curb, making sure to cut the corner as quickly as possible, and now flat out, all the way down through 300R, through the right hander of 7, down towards turn number 8, then 9, and get himself ready now for the braking zone at turn number 10. Looks to his right, it'll be the Dunlop billboard that runs over the circuit. That's a good brake marker as well. Going down to second gear from 150 meters of quarter apex, and now through the chicane he goes. Holding second gear, now up to third quickly. Reduce the wheel spin, Now it's turn 13. Make his way through that right-hander as he comes on out of it. Now it's uphill into nets. Through 14, flat out initially. Now lift off the throttle, get the brakes on, straighten the steering wheel, but you've got to turn whilst doing it. You've got to overlay the throttle towards the brake, and now coming out that left-hander in towards the right-hander, a Panasonic corner. Similar situation here, albeit a slightly less big elevation gradient. And as he makes way out of that corner, now onto the start finish straight he goes. And for William Chandler, what's this going to look like here as he powers his way down towards what will be the timing line? Has he been able to put it together? We're about to find out as he heads along. And as he does, well, he was personal best in the first sector. What's it going to be here in the rest of the lap? And the answer is going to be, it's not going to be improved there. He is going to stay where he is William Chandler, so he's still got a bit more work to do, but he'll be hoping that perhaps in that number 43, he's got some more time in the bag later on. Albeit time is running out. 5.5 minutes still left on the clock. It's not going to be comfortable at this point as Kieran Sharp's in the pit lane. He thinks he's got the job done. Arcelona, meanwhile, has put on a fresh set of tyres by comparison and makes way out. So he's going to have one last gasp at this, and that's the point we're making earlier, which is he's got all the fuel out the car he can now. The 55 litres will be down to approximately about 30 litres at this point, so we have a relatively light car, and he's just got to simply chuck the car out the circuit. He gets the one out lap, but the lap after that will be with the tyres that are in their prime. The compound that we do have on these Porsche Cup cars, of course, it does last the best part of 15 to 20 minutes if you go full attack. It depends on the circuit. Oh, that's gone very wrong there for one of our drivers. Who's that? I think that's Leon Burki who has gone loose. That's your Swiss driver there who's gone completely on around. And how exactly has that happened, I hear you ask? Well, we can get you a replay as he gets himself back together. Careful, Leon. And he does very well in the end. Make sure he gets back onto another runoff area so that way he doesn't impede anybody. But this is how it went wrong for him. So this was making his way through Coca-Cola, and the rear of the car just let go there on the weight transfer, went spinning around and then rolled it backwards into the escape area. Well done to him for doing so, kept it nice and safe. But back we come then, and as we do, well, still a few more laps to come for our drivers, but Berkey right now the lowest place driver of our 19, who made the way all the way to Japan today. Not quite as many drivers as we saw in Portugal, but to be fair, not all of them can make every round, and that's why we do typically see a drop score in this 5-round championship. But as Janos Wenzel makes his way on to the start finish straight right now, the German driver in the 313, well, he's definitely looking quite quick at the moment, a lovely livery machine at that. Making his way on through. Right now, what's it going to be here for Wenzel as he heads towards the timing line? And the answer is going to be this time around. It is going to be, well, he was fourth. Does he improve? The answer is no. He's still got a bit more work to go, but he'll have what will be probably 2 more laps he can squeeze it in with the amount of time remaining. So don't count him out yet. He may be able to get himself on the front row, albeit at the moment he is the best part there of what is almost 4 attempts off of the overall pole time. But looking from him, back to what will be Otto Karis. And the Dutchman right now looking quite quick here, although he's just been demoted down to 8th from 7th as a result of a bit of an improvement for other drivers. I think that was just coming across the line there. Only once got improvement from Martin Blankensteiner, who's moved up to 6th. So the Dane has found a bit more time out there. Kieran Sharp's still in the pit lane, I can tell you. So therefore he thinks he's definitely got the job done by 3 attempts. And it's going to be who joins him on that road right now in his mind. But can anybody else subvert the narrative here? Well, we'll have to wait and see, as we do see Pavel Kralika, the Polish driver here, making his way on around. Lovely livery machine. A very similar livery there. It's one of our other cars we were talking about earlier. But the 56 driver right now rolling his way up the hill. And, well, right now for him, starting in 12th place isn't too bad. As we do see that go wrong, and he runs deep there to the next bend. Out of respect to the yellow flags. Well, that's going to compromise his lap, but he'll get one more chance of this right now. But Pavel Grilica has definitely not had a happy lap here. And, well, whilst he has played it safe, respecting those yellows, which you have to do, otherwise the stewards will be knocking on your door as he makes his way down the start finish straight this time. He now knows it's do or die. It is literally all or nothing on this one if he wants to start inside the top 10 for race number 1. And overtaking around here is highly possible at Fuji. You can denote that by the fact how wide the road surface is. The only sector where overtaking is normally challenging is the last sector, so from turn number 10 all the way up to 16, but we'll see here what they can do, because Grilica makes his way down towards turn of 1, and we jump aboard with him for the remainder of his lap. He's going out of turn number 2 and up towards 3 he goes here, and as he does so, will make his way casually along and get ready for that left hand and brake as late as possible. They brake at the 50 meter board, drops to 3rd gear, but you can see there by going so late into the braking zone, he's had to lead it more to the ABS there, lose a bit of momentum. Goes a bit wide there at 4, that's to set up the line through 5, and then up the hill here right now, well, I think they're just trying to get the traction down, not too happy with the flow of the lap, but that's a lovely run through the hairpin, to be fair to him. Now building up the speed as he gets ready to go downhill in towards next quarter. Opens up the run for turn 7, 8, 9. Albeit perhaps a little bit too much there, and as a result almost the risk of understeering wide, but onto the brakes he goes as he comes on down in towards what will be the hairpin. Nice approach to the apex there. Goes to first and back to second, so short shifting to reduce the wheel spin, and now heading up towards turn number 13 and pulls aside there. He's not happy with the lap. He thinks that it's not going to be an improvement, and therefore he lets the car behind him go. And if anything, he might have been gifting a bit of a slipstream there to one of our other drivers, and I think that might have been, that was not Mav Gardner, who we welcome to the grid today. A late joiner, but very happy to see him on the grid here. And well, the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver from Scotland, making his debut in the 805. But the other car we did see there, I'm not 100% certain who it was. I think it was Bobby Boss, in fact. And as Bobby makes his way down, missed the opening round, but he's here today. What's it going to be for Bobby here as he comes across that timeline? I think he benefited from the distant slipstream of what was Grillica. As he comes all the way up towards the timeline, the answer is going to be, it is going to be an improvement, Bobby Boss, and it will be enough to put him to 10th on a 1 minute 40.06. A lovely lap from him. Meanwhile, Johanna Riffin, he makes his way down the start finish straight right now. And what's it going to be for the number 69 driver? It's all looking nice. Personal best in sectors 1 and 2. In sector 3, meanwhile, the answer is going to be for him. He jumps all the way up to 11th place there. So a lovely bit of work there from Johanna Riffin. And that's going to put him just outside the top 10 spots. To be fair, though, he'll be very pleased with that. Will Mav Gardner get his final lap in? No, he will not, because with only 4 seconds left on the clock. 3, 2, 1. That is going to be qualified, all said and done, ladies and gentlemen. And that means we now make our way to the grid for the first of our 2 races here today at the Fuji International Speedway. So as they all make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the first of 2 races. It is going to be Kieran Sharp who takes pole position then. And, well, he missed out on pole last time out by a slender margin, but here today he takes it by a considerable margin at Fuji. And the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver, we joined on the front row of the grid by Arn Solono. And the Kuzak's crew driver from Sweden, delivering well in qualifying to be on that front row, and just ahead of Jamie Nuttall by the best part there of what was 300ths. The Cracked Racing driver will then have the company of the privateer there of Janis Wenzel, who starts in 4th place. Good effort from him in qualifying. And then they will see behind them what will be the partner in it of William Chandler for Cracked Racing and his teammate of Martin Blankensteiner. From row number 3 to row 4, it's then going to be Mikkel Estevez, the ZRT Mobo driver, just ahead of Otto Chris, the Flying Dutchman, then being followed up by none other than what will be Samuel Kremers, who starts in 9th place for DLR FP1, and then we'll see Bobby Moss starting in 10th place there with that late improvement in qualifying for the Nigel Mansell fan club. Then it's going to be Johanna Riffin with a late imprinted qualified as well, moving all the way up to 11th, and that's where he starts, best of the rest. And he's going to be in the company on the 6th row of the grid by none other than Mav Gardner for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. Outside of your top 12, then starting in 13th place, it's going to be Pavel Grilica, the Kuzak's crew driver, just ahead of Quinton Vingerden, with the TSRC Esports driver then being followed up by RPMS Esports, none other than RPMS Simsport, I should say, none other than Martin Foster, with the Britain then being the company of Patrick Masigowski. And then the Red Bulls Racing driver will have the company behind him on row number 9, the final full row of the grid of what be Raymond van Zutphen, and, well, the Flying Dutchman being followed up there by Aspire's Mitch Woolerton. And then last but not least on this grid, starting in 19th place, it is going to be Leon Burkey for Red Bulls Racing, where it all went backwards coming out to turn number 3 midway through qualifying, and that was really the story of his qualifying session. But now here in the race, could he have a happier story? Can he potentially make his way up the order and get himself comfortably set for the next race of the day? Well, for all that and more, ladies and gents, that we are about to find out, because all of our grid right now get itself set up very much so. We've got a couple of cars still to make their way into position on this grid, but once they're all in, you can understand the lights will be going on quite quickly, and then we will be green flag racing for the first time today. But everyone right now absolutely itching to go, no doubt about it. And as our drivers wait very eagerly, we are just waiting for the last couple of cars to get themselves in position. Understanding a few drivers perhaps need a bit of a comfort break before they do jump in the car. They do have an extended period of time here with which to wait, but we'll see exactly what's going to happen, because for the man who starts in third, this is Jamie Nuttall, who right now sat in his car and understandably thinking to himself, what can he do? But the man who starts in front of him, Kieran Sharp, has got a short run down towards turn of 1. Perhaps it might be an easy one, perhaps it will not, but we've only got a few more seconds to go, and then we will be green flag racing for the first time here today, ladies and gentlemen. So of all of our cars in position, I think we've just got 10 seconds now before the lights do come on from what I hear in my ear. And, well, it's going to be a long run down towards turn number 1, but Sharp will be hoping he can get the best possible run here, as otherwise Arn Solono will be looking to keep him company. There is Solono on the left-hand side of your picture, but all these drivers right now very eager to go. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here come the lights. So the revs rise for the first time today. It's the sound of screaming flat sixes, and it's lights out, and away we go here at Fuji. As Kieran Sharp looks to get a good run, and as he does, he gets a perfect launch there. As Lono in turn has to tuck in behind. Here they go, they're down towards turn number 1, and we can see the slow go defensive versus Nuttall, and looking actually now, look up the inside of Sharp, going late on the brakes, but it's not going to work. Coming through behind, meanwhile, there's a lovely start there from Otto Karis up the inside of Estevez. Estevez has had a very slow start then, the ZRT Momo machine, but right now he's getting himself back up to speed here as he gets ready to go in towards turn number 3, but all clean for everyone so far, as Janos Wenzel there defending versus Martin Blankensteiner, and right now the German driver here in the privateer machine doing well to fend off the attacks of the Danish driver, but still we've got a long ways to go as Wenzel goes loose there at 100R. The car goes spinning to the run-off variant, and he lets it roll out the way immediately, but whilst he rolls backwards, Otto Karis on the attack there, as we do see him looking to go up the inside of Johanna Riffin. Oh, who's that going sideways? That's William Gardner. Well, not William Gardner, William Chandler, I should say. And the correct racing driver going around there, coming out to turn number 6. And the Brit right now with a spin. I don't think he was pushed on that journey. I think it might have been his own volition and cold tyres. We'll get a replay of that when we can to try to understand what exactly went wrong. But where it's gone wrong for him, meanwhile, it's going right for those at the front of the field as Jamie Nuttall holds on to 3rd. But he's got the pressure of Blankensteiner here. And I'm not quite sure where Blankensteiner's found all this pace Sunday for cracked racing. But definitely qualifying was not a representation of what he can do in the race. As meanwhile, Estevez there lose it in the rear, and as he goes on around there before next bend, will Nets definitely catch it out, drivers even before they get to it. But meanwhile, at the said corner, we do see 2 wide there as the Kuzak's crew driver of none other than Grilica looking to make his way all the way around the outside here of what will be Quinten van Wingerden, and the 2 drivers going side by side all the way out the corner. But that's the thing with Panasonic Bend, you can skin it so many different ways, and in the end, well, van Wingerden gets the lead position initially, but now it's going to be a drag race down the start finish straight here as they come towards the end of lap number 1, and Van Wingerden in the distant toe there of a Riffin and Gardner. That will keep it safe for now. You can see Grilica immediately making his way now into the draft as Masagalski meanwhile also on the back here. The 2 Polish drivers absolutely pushing onwards versus the Dutchman, and we're under braking here. Masagalski looking to try and make a move there, but the Red Bulls racing driver right now can't make that progress, but he's definitely now, I think, getting himself keyed in a little bit more after a difficult qualifying session. Martin Foster, meanwhile, in the RPS Sim Sport pink machine, battling side by side here with Raymond van Zutphen. And as they come in towards Coca-Cola Bend, they'll go 2 wide. Foster right now trying to go for the switchback from left to right and right to left, as he's now going to look all the way around the outside initially through turn number 4. Can he get the momentum all the way around the outside? The answer is going to be no, not quite. In the end, he's going to lose out. But meanwhile, Mitch Woolleston has lost out considerably there, has Woolleston, as he brings himself back together. The Aspire machine right now dropping from 13th to 15th. Small mistake there at 100R, but an easy one to make. And now at 300R, we will see that battle for 13th place start to escalate. But Zutphen going defensive again. Foster on the outside here. Foster now trying to go all the way round at the hairpin, and the answer is going to be no once more, but he's definitely trying to put some pressure on, as meanwhile we do have a slowdown here for Arne Solono, the Swedish driver who's been caught cutting track limits. I suspect that will be for track limits at the Dunlop chicane at turns 11 and 12. He's just attacked an apex a bit too high, and therefore he's burnt that quite quickly, but he does lose out to Jamie Nuttall. And keep in mind, if you do see those yellow flags, that means the driver has got a slowdown penalty. That's awarded by iRacing itself, whereby the automated slowdown tuning system will essentially dictate how much time a driver has illegally gained for track limit breaches, and then they have to burn that time back based on their lap averages. So you never want to pick up a slowdown at the start of the race because you have no lap average delta, so it will be the most punishing slowdown you can possibly get, whereas later on in the race, in theory, you can get a much more considerate slowdown by comparison. But of course, you never want to try and game the system because the system will only game you back, and as we do see Janos Wenzel here trying to make his way back up the order, we're running right now in 15th place. Looking to the inside here at Maskowski with Woodson up front. It's going to be 3 wide. The Canadian driver goes to turn in, and Janos Wenzel there just comes in like a missile, had himself absolutely locked onto his target, and it goes wrong between the two as in the end Masagowski and Wilson come together, and well, the Aspire racing driver sent spinning off the road. He's not going to be pleased about that whatsoever, and well, I think both of them there had a bit of an argument on the exit curve as to who wanted it a bit more, and understandably your triple free driver right now has come off the worst of the two, but as he gets himself back together, what a move there from Wenzel. Indeed, that's a candidate for a move of the season, if I've ever seen one, because that was from very far back, and in the end, he did just make it for the one. He made it for the two, and I think he caught both about blind in the end, but well done to everyone for noticing that it was coming. And indeed, with moves like that, of course, it's always epic when you do see a driver come from quite far back, but it always relies on the drivers in front also being wary and knowing they will leave the door open, otherwise it can always end in tears. But with that, we take a look back in time at some of the moments from the start of the race, including the race start itself, and here we go back in time. So this was how all the racing got underway as the lights went on and then they went out. And as they did, well, a good start from many of our drivers in the field, albeit keeping an eye to the right there, you will see Estevez have a bit of a slow start. He actually lost 2 places in this run in the Momo machine, but they got ready to go into that braking zone. Janos Wenzel is the driver we are focusing on here, given the fact things went a bit wrong for him later on. So through turn number 1, it was all good for him as he battled side by side with the correct racing car, and everyone else did safely make the way on through. But then on the inside of Coca-Cola Bend, something tells me cold tyres here, definitely did not set himself up too well. He went defensive as he rolled out the corner in towards 100R. This is where it went backwards into the runoff area, carried all the speed, but the rear started to come loose, and then by the time he got to turn 5, it had already all come around on him. We had this then for William Chandler only moments later for Crack Tracy. He was on the inside there battling with a 555, and as he made his way through the corner, well, the rear of the car let go their cold tyres. He never had the grip. That was the 455 of Quinton Van Bingen he was fighting with. Meanwhile, we had this as well for Mikkel Estevez. This was a little bit later as he made his way out the right, so trying to get some places back in the ZRT Momo machine as he came through 13 to way too much apex curve, but you could see the car's body at language there really diagonal, and that upset the rear end and really overcompressed the rear left tyre and sent the car spinning around. And then we had this for Patrick Matigowski only a lap later. Now the same sequence of corners really, going through 13 in towards nets at 14 and 15, made his way up the hill, and the rear of the car just simply said no, and he got ejected all the way out. And I suspect that was too much steering angle and also not enough throttle to compensate. We had what was Raymond van Zutphen as well have a big moment there, and well, we then had this absolutely huge move from Janos Wenzel, and this was at the start of lap number 3. Wenzel making his way down, batting of course, with Masigowski looking to the inside, and Masigowski went to the outside of Woodson. Meanwhile, Wenzel went to the inside, the Canadian tried in, turned in to find a face full of car, and then on the exit he also found another car, and well, the two of them there overcompressed each other, and unfortunately the Canadian driver coming off worse off, but a difficult instant score on that one. Who turned into whom? Well, I'll leave you guessing on that one, ladies and gents, because that camera angle is definitely not going to help us whatsoever. But our stewards, of course, if it gets reported, they have plenty more angles to work with. But still, the opening 7 minutes of this race have absolutely been full of exciting racing action. There's even more to come, because here comes a move from Pavel Grilica as he looks to move. Van Bingen goes too deep there. It takes way too much entry curve in towards turn 1. And well, in the end, the car got caught up on it. The front left tyre rode the curb high onto the grass, and he opened up the door so much there for the 56. I think Pavel Grilica's going to look back at that one and think, thank you, I guess. It's what he wanted to be saying, given the fact how that move played out. But understand, I think Quinton Van Bingen there wanted to take even more curb in order to open up the corner and look for the switch back. But in doing so, they've realised the fact the curb they're coming into turn 1 is actually raised away from the circuit. But meanwhile, speaking of trying to raise his status, well, this is Mav Gardner right now trying to protect his status, because Samuel Kraders and Johanna Riffin are all fighting with him as they come down. Looking back for the rear there. Oh, that's getting a bit tasty between those two, as we can see a Riffin there having to defend hard. Kraders trying to go around the outside of him. Looks like one they, then the other, and onto the brakes they go. And there's going to be no change at the moment. But as they come out of what is turn number 10 in towards 11 and 12, that's going to now force what we Kraders to fend off versus Otto Karras. Karras they're trying to come through now to try and help out Johanna Riffin. He wants to get a bit more involved in all the action. A little bit not teammates right now, but understand me, these drivers all eagerly loving battling back and forth, and we love to see it. They're coming over the right. You can continue to ride on board here and look back for the rear of Mav Gardner's 805 car, the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver. It doesn't matter what car you give him, he absolutely does love driving these machines. And, well, understandably right now, he is a multidisciplinary driver, and he's very good while at that. He's already gone from 12th to 6th, and right now the gap to Martin Blankensteiner might be a further 6 seconds. We see Blankensteiner briefly make a cameo at the bottom of your picture, but as he disappears out of the camera, Mav Gardner right now staying very much in the camera and charges his way on down. That's Johanna Riffin here, riding the toe, looking one way, then the other. Not going to quite work out for the inside, but he will go for the outside, as meanwhile, Otto Karras on the inside there of Grilica. And as they roll the way out of what will be turn 1, well, we will see Karras there take the place. Now, Van Bingen behind, he's now going to be thinking to himself, okay, how do I best get involved in this, given how fast they're fighting each other? And the answer here is he's got to be smart about this. So coming down off the hill, we have 2 rider board looking down over the front of the Sim Racing Collective Esports 455. It's a little bit in the thick of the battle right now, but here's the body language problem. Where exactly does he put the car in relation? Does he go up the inside into the hairpin? Well, the problem is if you do so, because it's such a downhill braking zone, you have to brake very early by default on Racer 9. On the inside, you do have to brake an extra 20 metres early normally in order to be able to let the car settle. So therefore, Van Bingen not going for the move there. He knows it's not a safe place. So instead now he thinks about attacking here later on in the lap. But of course, if he attacks the man in front of him, that buys Karras space, and it means that Samuel Kramers and Johanna Riffin also get some space. So it's really a bit of an odd spot right now. And there is a saying that a lot of drivers have told me over time, which is that essentially when you are in these multi-pack battles, you never want to be the last driver in them, because the problem is, if you think you're faster than the next guy, that's all well and great, but the problem you then have is the fact that by fighting the guy in front of you, you cause the two of you to fall away from the rest of the train. And that's what the problem is about Ringenden right now. I think he's got the pace that in theory he could be attacking everything at the front of this group, but because he's at the back of it, he's got to play the patience game and hope that Grilica is able to make his way on through. If he's not, then it does mean that suddenly Van Ringenden here is going to have to think about taking measures into his own hands. But at what point does he do so? Because we've just passed the halfway point of this race, and at least for the moment, he's not going to go for it. I think it's the right call. Further back on the attacks, trying to make his way back up through the field is Mikel Estevez here as he looks to get involved, albeit on the back there of William Chandler. Both drivers have had difficult starts this race. Both are down almost 10 places, so therefore they both know they've got similar pace to each other. They need to work together perhaps. But that's a go wrong for Johanna Riffin. He's dropped all the way down to 12th place only moments after we left them alone. And one of the wonderful thing is we can of course get a replay of this and what exactly happened to Riffin. Here's your answer. So this was at turn number 1 on exit. Got the power down after going for the switchback. Got the power down a bit too aggressively. And the rear of the car lighting up, then going all the way around. As easy as that, it is to make a mistake. And the Malaysian driver getting himself back right in the right direction as well. Well done to him for doing so. But meanwhile, back to your live pictures we go. And as we do, well, now we are back to the front of the field. We've left these guys alone for some time. And with Jamie Nuttall and Arne Solana, of course, they changed places when Solana did pick up that slowdown penalty in the early stages on lap number 2. But right now, at least, Kieran Sharp, he's been stalwart. He has not moved from the very top after taking that pole position by 3 attempts. But right now, well, 3 attempts is the gap he's got to Jamie Nuttall. Albeit 3 attempts in the race is nowhere near as valuable as 3 attempts in qualifying. I can tell you that when you do have this long start finish straight and the slipstream becomes so apparent. But making the way on down, and we jump aboard here with Jamie Nuttall, who's getting closer and closer. Sharp goes defence in the middle of the road. He knows he's under threat. Now Jamie Nuttall for Grax Racing is going to look around the outside here under braking. Both of them braking as late as possible. The brake disc now absolutely nicely warmed up. Those carbon ceramic brake discs, and therefore it means that these drivers could really go as late as they dream to dare to do so on the brakes. But as we do go in towards turn number 3, Sharp having to go defensive even more. Nuttall looking from one side to the other. This is now where Sharp's ability to make his car absolutely wide will be under pressure. And in return, of course, it does mean that for Jamie Nuttall, he's got to get inventive. But that's the wonderful thing about these flowing corners in the first half of a lap. You can essentially go from outside to inside to inside to outside. You can really try to mess with your rival's mind. You keep them under that mental pressure, and that's what Nuttall's doing. Solana, meanwhile, just watching by to that 3rd place. I think his game plan is to see what these two do to each other for a bit and see whether perhaps he can get a bit more involved. But Sharp going to defence again in towards the Dunlop hairpin. So Nuttall right now, well, he wants his piece of the pie, and Sharp is trying to keep away as much as possible. But Arne Solana, when is he going to get involved and potentially stick a fork in it? We'll have to see, because he's not choosing to get involved. As meanwhile, Martin Blankensteiner running 4th place. Nuttall's teammate, well, he's keeping Bobby Moss behind. And Moss in the 555 has definitely enjoyed a good start to this race, having started in 10th and made some progress into 5th. I think there's a bit more progress to potentially come. But speaking of progress here, here's Otto Karis looking around the outside of Samuel Kramers. These two have been building up to a fight for quite some time. That's going to be up the inside down to next man. But look up the inside of both of them. Can he get it done? Not quite, but the Kuzak's crew machine and Grilica there, the 56, really went for it. And right now, well, that's completely put them out of sorts. And the nice thing for him, as he comes out of this corner, is he's bought himself the racing line. But unfortunately, there a little bit of a poor exit from Samuel Kramers on that inside line. It has just blunted Grilica's momentum. Otherwise, that would have been the perfect run down the start of the straight. He could have had both of them by what would have been 2/3 of the way down. He's getting very inventive with this now. And to be fair, at this point, you've got to be inventive when you're fighting this close with 6.5 minutes still left on the clock. But here they come down that start-finish straight and defending on the inside there. That is going to be Kramers, but Grilica now pull it across. And as they go onto the brakes here, he looks at the inside. He's almost there. But then Otto Karis turns in and says, well, if you make contact with me, we'll both go to the stewards and I'll get them to throw the book at you. And understandably, that's what Karis having the confidence there. But it's going to be 3 wide. It's going to be Van Ringenden on the inside. 3 wide into Coca-Cola. You don't do this. You never do this. And somehow they all survive. Albeit it is a run wide there from the machine of what was none other than Samuel Kramers. But he had to go wide there to survive it. And well done to them all for doing that. You never see a 3 wide into Coca-Cola. It's such a tight corner at the apex. But they did it. And it's not over yet because Van Ringenden now on the inside of Grilica. Is he going to get the move out the hairpin? I think he's going to get the initial momentum. And now the Polish driver back on the left of the pitch is going to get back ahead. He has got more speed as they come down and further back. Kremers and Wenzel absolutely pushing on here. They're all getting stuck in. Janos Wenzel comes in from very far back. That's a big lunge there. And we did it into turn 1 earlier on. He's doing it again right now. He's the master of the late lunges. And well, the 313 driver here, I think you had Daniel Ricciardo giving him a call later on today to say, stop stealing my IP. Because right now the German driver here really are giving Daniel Ricciardo a demonstration how late you can break in a Porsche Cup car. But of course, looking for a real life Formula 1 driver here to our guys out on the circuit today, and as they roar the way out of what is turn number 15 up towards 16. Well, Wenzel there, we briefly lose him. Hopefully that's not a sign of a technical issue to come. Surely we're not going to have one of those today. We don't want to lose him because he's given us plenty of entertainment. Meanwhile, well, back to your lead as we go, and after Kieran Sharp was under so much pressure from Jamie Nuttall, well, right now Jamie Nuttall is under pressure from Arns Lono. So Darcy was the Swedish driver has picked his mark now to play what is a prejudice against, but meanwhile, well, there's no prejudice between these two, Van Wingenden versus Gulliker, as they're still too wide. All the way down towards turn of 1. Van Wingenden on the inside here. Surely this has got to be a straightforward defence, but also look at the gap they're giving to Otto Karas, who's now started to pull away. And Karas, in fact, now does have the best part of 1.5 second gap here. And with all these drivers, of course, just out of contention for the pole position of race number 2. That's being held by this man right now, the 6th place runner of Mav Gardner for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. If he finishes here, he's got a golden opportunity to guarantee himself what will be another solid result in race 2, so long as he doesn't make any mistakes. Although that's easier said than done for any of our drivers here, and that's not to put him under any mental pressure at all. But as, hold on a second, Grillick has gone very deep there, and with him goes Samuel Kramer's going deep, and here comes Janos Wenzel. And right now the two fellow countrymen there, Wenzel and Kramer's, they do swap places, and Grillick coming back here versus Kramer, so I think giving up the position there in order to respect the fact he did help Grillick go even deeper into the corner. Johanna Riffin on the back of this, he goes up the inside, and well, it's absolutely brilliant. It's clean racing. This is Porsche Cup racing that we come to know, love and respect. And as the Malaysian driver here goes on the attack, the privateer right now looking for a way in. It's not going to be easy, but goodness me, this is so back and forth here. It's so dicey between these drivers, and they've still got 3.5 minutes to go, which with our leader being on the start finish straight right now, about to go on to what will be lap number 11. It is going to be 2 more laps of excitement here at Fuji before we do head to race number 2. And therefore, who exactly is going to complete the running of this in what will be a favourable position? Well, we're about to see. As I can tell you one thing, this race is making me absolutely speechless. Coming down that start finish straight right now, well, all goes a little bit quiet for a brief moment, as I think the gap between drivers, at least at this time, has started to spread a little bit. However, that could be the calm before the proverbial storm, as Wenzel right now will have moved to 9th. Can he now steal 8th away from the Dutchman in front of him, or will the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver prove to be just that little bit more obstinate? Meanwhile, Jamie Nuttall, he's had a little bit of a run wide coming through turns 4 and 5, and well, that run wide has not cost him too much time. He's been allowed to be joined by Ancelono, who was a bit further back by comparison. So your top 3 are now starting to separate a bit. I wonder whether your top 3 are now starting to think more along the lines of, actually, you know what, it's probably not worth us fighting too much longer. This race is almost over, and with the gaps as they are, perhaps it's now better to start to look towards what will be race number 2. Now, that's not to say they won't take an opportunity when it's presented, but I just imagine that each driver right now is probably thinking the tyres are starting to feel the strain, and on top of that, we're almost at the end, and this is a 2-race event, not 1, and therefore the points that are available to our drivers are the same as would be over the entirety of a single race round, such as round number 1 last time out. The points are split, however, across the 2 races, so therefore you need to be consistent in how you finish across both races to get the maximum possible potential score, and that's why nobody wants to necessarily risk things right towards the end when you are in a leading position or inside that top 3, because if you risk it and then suddenly lose it, you're essentially cutting what will be the best part of at least 40% of your points out of the race day. But that was a bit of a poor run there coming out to next bend for Van Wingenden on camera. The Sim Racing Collective Esports car riding too high with the sausage curves on exit, and as he clips them on the exit of what is Panasonic bend as well, Janos Wenzel here, he's got the slipstream, he's in the tow, we are on to potentially 1 final lap. Will we squeeze in 2 more? We're very close to doing so. I don't see a white flag being waved actually. I wonder if we are going to be getting in a 13th lap here, and if so, well, that's absolutely brilliant. I don't think all drivers would have expected that, but Wenzel looking up the inside here versus Van Wingenden, and then decides not to go for it. Well, that's a bit uncharacteristic there. Normally he would go for it. I wonder whether because he hasn't seen a white flag, he's decided instead, actually, it's not worth going for it this time. Meanwhile, going the wrong way there, Johanna Riffin going a bit wide at turn number 1, and here comes William Chandler trying to come back, and Chandler's had to take some time to get into this position, and that's not to say he hasn't been pushing hard, but I just don't think for Chandler it's worked out at all. But making his way down, riding on forward, what is the front bumper camera there, and right now the 43 driver trying to go all the way around the outside. Can he do it? The answer is no, but he's definitely trying to tease it out here as he looks through turn number 6. And Chandler right now, you know he's jumping at the bit here. He wants to make a magical move happen, but the problem is that trying to make that move happen is much easier said than done. And particularly where Griffin has proven to be a very capable driver here today. Qualifying has not really highlighted what he can bring to the table. And hold up a second, there's been a bit of an instant carring around there. That's where Ringadung's gone all the way round. He's been spun, or he spun himself, one of the two. We'll find out very shortly, potentially. But before we look back to here, we take a look to the leaders. And with 15 seconds left on the clock, we are going to get one more lap in. I don't think we're seeing the checkered flag this time. Oh, 30, if it is, it's going to be prepared very late on. No, we go on to our 30th and final lap in our first race of the day. Sprint number 1. And Kieran Sharp right now leads by 1.2 seconds over Jamie Nuttall, with Antelono round off that top 3, and it's an 8-second gap back to Bobby Boss there, sat in 4th. But right now, very happy 4th place, as we can see Martin Blankensteiner, meanwhile, has not been able to catch back up to him. But we can catch up in the meantime as to what exactly happened to Quinten van Vingendung only moments ago. And here's a quick replay to explain. So this was your TSRC esports driver who was comfortably by himself. Janos Wenzel a bit further back, but nowhere near close to go for a lunch here. Van Vingendung took the corner. Normally, no, he did not. He took too much the apex curve there. The right-hand side tyres mounting the race sausage curve, and that unsettled the rear of the car and sent it on around. So for Van Vingendung, an easy mistake to make, but such a costly one so late on in the race. And indeed, it's millimetres sometimes that make the difference between you cleaning the corner very nicely versus ending up in an absolutely dirty state going on around. And well, it all went wrong there for him. Well, right now, for one of the TSRC esports machines, it's gone backwards. But meanwhile, running a TSRC livery, but part of the Nigel Mansell fan club, Bobby Boss, well, he's definitely right now hoping this could be a solid day. But looking back to your leader, the clock has gone to 0, and that means this race is done and dusted when they see that finish line. Well, Kieran Sharp right now, he's all in control here, and with the gap he's been able to carve out, as there's been a bit of trouble further back for Janos Wenzel. We will see if we can find out what's happened there. Well, as Kieran Sharp makes his way on down the start-finish straight, he took pole position by 3 attempts, but he was kept under pressure, and Jamie Nuttall in the first 70% of the race. But in the end, he was able to break away, and for Kieran Sharp, it is a first win of the day ahead of Jamie Nuttall, and then Antelono, who rounds off your top 3. Well done to them to finish on the podium. Bobby Boss, the end, he will hold on to 4th despite being caught towards the end by Martin Blankensteiner, but a 4th place in his debut. He'll be very happy with that, with Blankensteiner taking 5th and then taking 6th to take pole position in race number 2 on his debut. It is Mav Gardner there for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. Well done to the Scotsman. 3 seconds ahead of Otto Karras, who fought hard to earn that 7th place finish. But look at this behind. This is an absolute bit of pandemonium here in the fight for 8th place, and Pavel Grilica in the end brings it on home just ahead of Samuel Kramers, with Johan Griffin round off that top 10, and then William Chandler best of the rest in 11th ahead of Mikel Estevez, and then we will see Martin Foster coming home in 13th place ahead of Quinten van Vingendung, with Janos Wenzel relegated to 15th, and then here comes Raymond van Zutphen, who will take home at 16th place in the end. And I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, that will be almost it. We're still waiting on Mitch Woolitson to come across that timeline, with Leon Berkey having finished the race a lap down as classified, and it was 2 laps down, unfortunately. Well, it's in fact 7 laps down, as I've just been reinformed in my ear by Patrick Masigowski, who has had it all go a bit wrong for him. But here is Mitch Woolitson, and as he makes his way across that line, well, 17th place, not what he wanted, but that contact early on in the race definitely cost him dear, but he'll be hoping for a much happier day in the office in race number 2. But as our drivers all cooling down, an absolutely brilliant race, no doubt about that. And well, now we do have our brief warm-up period to dissect the results from race number 1 and get ourselves ready with a comfort break for our second race of the day. Speaking of those race results, well, here they come. And as we can see, an absolutely brilliant race number 1 here for round number 2 of the Sim Racing Collective Porsche Cup Season 1, brought to you on iRacing for the Fuji International Speedway. And Kieran Sharp in the end taking the victory for the Sim Racing Collective Esports by what was the best part there, 1.2 seconds over cracked races Jamie Nuttall. Anselone in the end put some pressure onto the cracked racing driver, but the Kuzak's crew driver had to settle for 3rd in the end. It didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to, but he'll be happy with the fact he finished on the podium, even if the pesky slowdown early on cost him that 2nd place spot. Then it was Bobby Moss making sure he stayed in 4th all the way to the end, and the Nigel Mansell fan club driver delivering well. The best part there was 2 seconds ahead of Martin Blankensteiner, who rounded off the top 5. The cracked racing driver from Denmark was then followed up by the Scotsman of Mav Gardner. And well, for the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver, he'll be very happy to know he's now earned himself pole position for race number 2, but he's going to have a big challenge, ahead of him. and making sure he can try to hold on to it, and I suspect he'll be setting his sights on a podium as a minimum. Otto Karras just missing out on the reverse grid pole position, starting 7th next time out, because that's where he finished in race number 1, but the Flying Dutchman driver there doing a very good job to make his way through the field to hold on to that 7th place finish, given the fact he had to fight hard with all the drivers behind him, including Pavel Grilica, who in the end was at the head of the 4-way fight for 8th at the finish line, and then also at Samuel Kremers, who took 9th there for DLR FP1, and also at Johan Ariffin, who came through to finish in 10th there. A well-deserved effort from the Malaysian privateer. Best of the rest of the 11th was William Chandler. After his early spin, he recovered to an 11th place, but the cracked racing driver knowing he had so much more capable here. And then we did see Mikel Estevez, the Spaniard, with that early incident, cost him as well, but just behind Chandler right at the finish line. It was then Martin Foster in 13th for RPS Simsport ahead of Quinton van Wingerden, with a late mistake costing him tragically, and the same for Janus Venn. So we didn't quite get a replay of what happened to him, so we don't know if it was a mistake or whether it was inflicted through contact with another car, so therefore we can't give you any speculation on that. But we did see Raymond van Zutphen unfortunately have a bit of a difficult one for the Flying Dutchman, head of Mitch Wollaston, who in end completed your lead lap finishers. Behind the Aspire driver, it was then the Red Bulls racing pair of Leon Burki and also Patrick Masagowski, both of them not having a happy race and hoping for plenty more in race number 2. But ladies and gentlemen, that was race number 1, and what a brilliant one. But that is one in the books. It's all said and done. And now we just do patiently wait a little bit for our second one, as we do see a couple of cars parked up around the circuit, including Leon Burki, who's had a bit of a moment, I think, at Nets Bend. It's caught him out again. And as he gets himself back together right now, we're understanding the Red Bulls racing driver here, I think just try to keep the adrenaline flowing and also see if he just get a little bit of extra practice in before we do go into our next race. And keep in mind, of course, our next race is 30 minutes in length, not 20, but we had an extra 10 minutes on the big 3-0, and that adds a little bit more of a strategic element to the race. Now, there's no pit stops expected, but we are expecting that time management will be even more key. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way to the grid and see who brings on home the victory. And as all our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll all line up for our second and final race of the day. Here's Mav Gardner then, who takes the top 6 inverted pole position for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, head of Martin Blankensteiner. The correct racing driver lines up second, just ahead of Bobby Moss for Nigel Mansell Fan Club, and then we do have Arcelona, who rounds off your top 4. The Kuzak's crew driver will be just ahead of the man he spent a lot of time fighting with towards the end of race number 1 of Jamie Nuttall, with the correct racing driver in the company of the man that nobody could quite beat, Kieran Sharp, who'll be starting in 6th for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. Otto Karras starts 7th. He'll be very eager to get into that top 5 as quickly as he can for the Flying Dutchman, ahead of Kuzak's crew's Pavel Grilica, and then the Polish driver will be followed up there to complete the top 10 by Samuel Kremers for DLR FP1, and it'll be the privateer there of Johan Ariffin. Then starting at 11th, best of the rest, it's William Chandler for Cracked Racing, just ahead of Mikel Estevez. He'll be in at 12th place there for ZRT Momo, and then we do see outside of your top 12 in 13th place, it's going to be Martin Foster for RPMS Simsport, head of Sim Racing Collective Esports is Quinton van Wingerden. The Dutchman will then be followed up by the German driver there of Janus Venzel, who'll be looking for redemption in race number 2. The privateer just ahead of Flying Dutchman's Raymond van Zutphen, and then completing the run of full rows of the grid, starting 17th is going to be Mitch Wollaston, ahead for the Aspire team, ahead of Red Bulls Racing's Leon Burki, and then last but not least, starting in 19th place, it is going to be Patrick Masagowski, who in the end for Red Bulls Racing, know he's got it all to do from the very back of the field, but do not rule him out. He may be able to surprise everybody come the finish. So that's your grid, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone's absolutely set and ready to go. And as they make their way onto that grid, well, what can we expect in this second one? Other than plenty more excitement, no doubt about it. But the gridding procedure right now, they do have a bit more time, so therefore they'll all be absolutely itching to want to go racing as quickly as they possibly can. And we look back here to the man who starts in 14th, knowing a top 10 was highly possible in race number 1. It didn't work out, but there is more, therefore, that needs to be done in this one. As we also do say hello there to McFly8870, who says, got my times wrong, jumped in for 50 minutes practice, and it was already qualified. Well, a bit unfortunate there, but thankfully we did get to see you make your way into qualified, good sir. Well, hopefully we've got to see you on the grid as a result, but indeed they're not quite as packed a grid as what we saw in Portugal, but to be fair, whether we've got 29 drivers or 19 drivers in this instance, I can tell you one thing, quantity does not guarantee quality, but we have seen some absolutely quality racing so far, and I'm sure we're going to see even more in the second race, because these drivers right now, they really are showing you what you can do in these Porsche 992.2 Cup cars. And keep in mind, of course, this is the latest rendition of the car, made available in the world as a 2026 for Porsche Super Cup Racing and also Porsche Carrera Cup. And the main difference between it and its predecessor, the introduction and activation of the electronics, particularly the anti-lock braking system and also the traction control system. So ABS and TCS are now applied in these cars, and many say it takes away the risk versus reward factor of locking up the brakes or overspinning the wheels. But the one thing it does add to these cars, of course, is the thrill of essentially leaning on the electronics. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the grid is set. Here come the light, and for the second time today, it is going to be firing lights. And it's lights out, and away we go here for race number 2 as they all get away. We've had 2 drivers not make it to the grid, but the 17 who have. Well, right now, Mav Gardner leads them away down towards turn number 1. Now get ready to go to that braking zone here. Gardner going defensive, but you can see Blankenstein looking one way behind. It's getting close between Moss and Slono. They're going to squeeze. That's going to turn a car around. We've got a safety car already. It's all gone wrong right at the start. And whereas it went very well in the open lap of what was race number 1, right now the opening corner of race number 2 has absolutely gone wrong. Albeit multiple drivers are able to move forward, but with the safety car being triggered, they are not allowed to race. And while everyone right now trying to figure out where they should be in this order, I think they are going to race themselves down towards 100R, but after that they will be getting the call to essentially say safety car has been deployed. It's got a bit rolled there for drivers, and we will have a few towed to the pits. But the good news is they will have an opportunity now with that tow, and the fact it's not a long distance tow to the pit lane, they will have the time to get the faster pairing and get themselves back out. But some drivers have really lost out by comparison with others, and unfortunately we did lose Mitch Woollerton and also Johanna Riffin on the starting grid, so therefore we are down to 17 runners. Hopefully we might see them later on in this race, or if not, if things got a bit wrong, I haven't got anything to explain as to why we've lost them. Sometimes it does happen, perhaps a technical issue has occurred to their cars. Well, meanwhile, all the field taking it easy now. We will be behind the safety car for at least what will be 2 laps after this one. It'll be to Mav Gardner to pick up the safety car on the start finish straight or on the exit of turn number 1. What that does mean is we get a grateful opportunity now to take a look back at what exactly happened right at the start, and here's a look back at your race start. So, for Mav Gardner in particular, all he had to do was get a good launch and run his way down towards turn number 1. It wasn't quite as good a launch, however, as what Kieran Sharp was able to do in race 1, where he was able to open up a 3/10 gap before they got to that braking zone. However, as Gardner covered off the inside, Blankenstein looked at the inside with him, and Gardner was never going to let that go, and it was the big pinch there that we did also see, but then we did see it go a bit wrong with some other drivers here. Now, in particular, who did it go wrong for? Well, Bobby Boss was one of the biggest victims of it all. Jamie Nuttall found himself right in the thick of it. This was the on-board from Nuttall's perspective in Cracked Racing. Made his way into that braking zone, and as he did, well, number 14 driver there just slightly squeezed, and then some further contact from behind sent him back to the car of Boss. A bit of a difficult one. So I think Nuttall went to squeeze into a space of 2 cars, and well, Boss was on the outside just about, and meanwhile, as the car on the inside, I think everyone misinterpreted just how much width they all needed to survive. This was the onboard with Bobby Moss, who, after what was a decent start, to be fair to him, clear road in front of him, and, well, is trying to go all the way around the outside, but just came in a little bit too tight there in the end to be collected. I wonder if he'd just gone a little bit deeper into the corner. Not saying he would have picked up all the places, but I do wonder whether he'd been able to survive that by comparison. Meanwhile, Samuel Kramers came down into this. This was riding on board over the roof camera for the 374 driver. He went deep intentionally. So did Janos Wenzel. And look at that. From your 43, well, that was not Janos Wenzel. That was William Chandler going around the outside of everybody. Chandler there wasting no time in making progress. But then, unfortunately, it did go very wrong for Mikel Estevez meanwhile. And this is what happened to the Spanish driver as he made his way down to the braking zone. The ZRT Momo drive. Oh! Well, that explains why we did see secondary contacts. Estevez missing his braking zone. Tried to escape on the grass to the inside. Unfortunately, that grass was never going to help him stop. So Estevez there being caught out by the concertina effect of the ZRT Momo driver, having to tow to the pits. So that's the one, the key ingredient of the incident we were missing, and now we have an understanding. Car is still being serviced in the pit lane for Estevez. Hopefully, he is able to get it repaired before the field comes all around, because if he does get it repaired before the safety car passes him in the pit lane, he will be allowed to catch back up to the field, or at least he will be on the lead lap when we go green flag racing again. Of course, we come back to live pictures. These cars going nowhere near as quickly as we normally expect it to do so, given we are behind the automated safety car. The safety car taking our drivers around at the best part of what will be around 60 to 70 miles an hour. That translating into the best part of what will be around none other than 85 to 95 kilometers an hour, if my conversion is good in my head. But as we do see our drivers heading on through right now, Mav Gardner leading this field on around. And to give you a recap of the order then, after what's happened on lap number 1, Mav Gardner is your leader, having started on pole, ahead of the man who joined him on the front renegade, Martin Blankensteiner. Then it's Arnsolono, who's moved up from 4th to 3rd, ahead of Kieran Sharp, who's already made up 2 places from 6th to 4th. Then have Quinten van Wingerding, who has absolutely escaped the clutches of 14th place and moved his way all the way to 5th place. That's very impressive from him. He's benefited from the chaos, no doubt about it, so he hasn't caused any of it. Pavel Grilliker as well, moving up from 8th to 6th. Then we'd have William Chandler in 7th, afterwards his escape around the outside at turn number 1. Well, he definitely avoided it all going wrong for so many, and sometimes that's what you've got to do. You've got to find the space which nobody else has wanted to touch. Then we did see Martin Foster. He's moved all the way up from 13th to 8th, ahead of Janos Lenzel, and then Raymond van Zutphen, meanwhile, rounds off the top 10. Otto Karius is the biggest loser from the top 10, given the drivers who are on circuit right now, as he makes his way on down. And he does pull out of the long line of cars there, and I think that's to give himself a bit of breathing room and not have to worry as much potentially about being caught up. As in fact, he's going to come into the pit lane here as Karras. I wonder whether he's got some damage to the car, as we've got a couple of other cars coming on in as well. And I wonder whether, because of the contact that was made, we did have several cars, to be fair, they were caught up. So was Bobby Boss and Samuel Kremers. I suspect what's happened is, and if my memory serves me correctly here, ladies and gentlemen, let me fill you in. When we do see a safety car deployed, the pit lane is closed for the first full lap under safety car. It's only after that lap is complete that the pit lane becomes open. If you go into the pits whilst the pit lane is closed, you will receive a stop and hold penalty, a black flag penalty that you have to serve when 3 laps being rewarded. So these drivers, and it makes sense, Karras, Moss and Kremers were all caught up in that early instant in the opening corner. They have all now coming in to have a fast repair on the car, where essentially the mechanics had so much instant coffee, they do the job so rapidly, and in doing so, well, now they're going to have a car that's been repaired. The only downside to this, of course, is the fact they are dropped to the back of the field. Samuel Kremers, meanwhile, he leaves the pit lane and he spends a bit more time. I suspect all the tyres on the car potentially have been changed here, or at least he's changed a couple of them to give himself the best possible tyre life for what will be the race. Now, bearing in mind this is a 30-minute race, albeit with the safety car, we will see the length of this race cut down in terms of the effective race time. We cannot add time on, unfortunately. So therefore, the 30 minutes has been continually trickling away as time has gone on. Well, I suspect this race right now has in fact really turned into what will be the best part of a 20-minute sprint. So suddenly, this is going to feel very similar to race number 1. But I think the reason why we've seen Samuel Kremers put a new set of tyres on, A, is because the slides and the contacts at the start will have helped him overheat the tyres and flat spot them. But more importantly as well, now he will have the freshest rubber of the whole field to try and cover through. And well, over 20 minutes, you can use the tyre to maximum effect. Most of the drivers out there will have tyres that will last for around 16 to 17 minutes, but Kremers will just have a slight advantage. The only problem he has is that he's got to get those tyres warmed up when the race restarts. That's not going to be as easy, although everyone, to be fair, will need to get their tyres reheated, because behind the safety car right now, they will have lost quite a lot of tyre temperature. When you do consider the fact these tyres, in the conditions we have seen here today, speaking of that weather there, we do have at the top centre of your screen, it's quite a low track temperature and ambient temperature, 22 degrees centigrade track temperature in particular. When the amount of cloud we are seeing here and no risk of rain, it does mean these tyres are not probably going to hit upwards of about 80 to 90 degrees on their contact patches. But given the fact you can push these tyres in excess of 105 degrees centigrade before they really start to lose their grip, well, if you can get those tyres up there nice and quickly, you may be able to go on the full attack. But you want to manage those tyre temperatures where you can, and Samuel Kremers, by changing those tyres, gives himself a lot more operating space. Now, it does seem as though we have got the car of Miguel Estevez out there, albeit he's dropped to the back of the field, and he is 2 laps down at this point as classified. I believe that might, in fact, actually be 1 lap down. But right now, being a lap down here, it means all he can do is try to unlap himself and hope he can pick up some points. But as our field makes his way onto the start for the straight, the lights are off of the safety car, and it does mean one thing and one thing only. It means that Mav Gardner very shortly is going to be required to resume the racing here at Fuji International Speedway for a further 21.5 minutes of racing at the Grand Prix circuit. Safety car is in, and as quick as that, Mav Gardner goes immediately there as he rolls his way away. And well, what a quick restart to the race. He does not leave anybody any time to breathe. And as we are green flag racing right now, we are go down towards turn number 1. Now as they make their way down to the braking zone here, Gardner, Blankensteiner and Solono, they've all been able to react quite well to one another. You see the rest of the field further back right now. Some drivers are stumbling, whereas others are fumbling. And meanwhile, here comes a move from Jamie Nuttall up the inside. Meanwhile, it's got to roll. Oh, there's 3 cars off the road again. That's Martin Foster. That's also there William Chandler and Patrick Masagowski. They've all got a Vuzels around there. That is none other. In fact, there's Masagowski. There's the other car. We're thinking of on Solono. Solono's been caught up in that. What exactly's happened? And it's gone wrong for Mav Gardner as well. He's restarted and he's put himself right in the middle of the road there. Careful, everyone, as he reverses off the road as best he can. But well done to Mav Gardner to resist the urge to essentially start reversing, but to hold his brakes and just wait. But that's gone wrong as meanwhile Leon Burkey here is swallowed up. And Burkey right now for Red Bull's Racing, just staying out of danger, finds himself inside the top 10. I think he might be relegated out of it shortly. But to be fair to the Swiss driver, just keeping it safe and clean right now could be worth some valuable points at the end of the day. You don't do the fastest out there. To get some good championship points, all you've got to do is make sure you don't make any mistakes. But on the inside of right now, Samuel Kramer's here, and Berkey will give him all the space to operate with. And I suspect that's also going to be Solono here trying to dive him through. Solono comes in like an absolute razor hot missile, but in the end, he doesn't quite make that work, makes contact instead, and now has to make sure that Chandler doesn't get back ahead of him. As we've got 2 wide here between Samuel Kramer and Otto Chris. And Chris right now on the inside, got it through nets, bed, both trying to squeeze each other. And in the end, well, Samuel Kramer's can't quite squeeze the door shut enough on Karras, and Karras gets back ahead of him there at the last possible moment. Leon Berkey on defensive versus William Chandler. Oh, that's going to be contact there, and it sends Berkey around. And Charlie then tries to go around the spinning machine, and he makes a mistake in doing so. And well, for Leon Berkey right now, gets himself turned back around. But William Chandler with damage, Berkey with damage as well. And both cars, I suspect, might end up having to come to the pit lane shortly, because Chandler's definitely got damage right now for a meatball flag. I can confirm that, ladies and gentlemen. And we do have a black flag for Mav Gardner, and that will be for instant points picked up, essentially. So Mav Gardner either a slowdown or what will be alternatively instant points. But Gardner's race now has a drive-through penalty applied to it, so we'll expect Gardner to be coming in within the next 3 laps. But meanwhile, after all that has happened, and after 1 lap on the restart, Kieran Sharp now leads the race. Had a Martin Blankenstein, and then it's Quinton van Vingerding who completes that top 3 with a sizable 2-second gap to Pavel Grilica. And then we do have none other than Janos Wenzel completing that top 5 at this time, albeit these drivers will right now, I think, build up to the next part of the story. And here it is that Quinton van Vingerding tried to attack Blankensteiner, and well, these two enjoyed battling at the start of this race before the safety car came out, and now they're going to enjoy it again after the safety car has gone away. We need to get a replay of what exactly happened on the restart, because we did have 3 cars in the end being ejected. In fact, 4 cars we could say, but 3 in one direction and 1 in the other. But right now, our leader, Kieran Sharp, has started to bolt away a little bit, as we do see this fighting behind definitely building up. And on the inside there goes Grilica on making the move on Janos Wenzel. That's going to enable him to get into 4th place. Lovely move there for your 56 driver in the white, pink and black livery. But then Wenzel does the same back to him in towards Panasonic corner. But you can do that there, given how wide the corner is. But what it means now is that Grilica's going to have the mother of all slipstreams in the run down the start finish straight. And he's got a lot of momentum by default because he took the race in line. So making his way on down here, this is going to be a straightforward as just keep the throttle pinned and make sure you outrun the guy on your inside. But the problem is that right now he's outrunning at a very slender rate, and unfortunately they don't have the toe of the cars in front. So Grilica's going to have to do this now on the brakes, and the one thing that Wenzel is very good at doing is outbraking everybody, as we have seen time and time again today. So they're going to be 2 wide coming out to turn number 1, and in the end Janos Wenzel takes the place back there. So the 313 driver right now really proving to be as stubborn as a mule in terms of losing places, and well, great defensive driving from him, and the privateer right now really being a force to be reckoned with here, and I suspect we're going to see that throughout the entirety of the season at this rate. As he comes on down, well, Blankensteiner versus Van Vingerding. They are staying put at the moment, but Van Vingerding is definitely getting closer and closer as we use this as an opportunity to take a look back at what exactly happened at turn 1 on the restart. So, this went wrong for William Chandler. It went wrong there for Foster. It's almost as if they all timed this to perfection. All 3 drivers there going for a spin. Can we get an earlier replay of that? I think we can. Now, this was on Solono in particular who we need to focus on. We went green flag, he was 3rd. Now, under braking here, he was by himself. went to the apex, cold tyres. The car twitched initially, it turned in and then it didn't, and it went round. Then Chandler and then Foss, they all made the same mistake. So complete shock there, and meanwhile Masagowski went spinning on out. Now what exactly happened to Masagowski is the question. Can we get a replay to explain and give us an answer? Yes, we can. This is Masagowski making his way on down. The Red Bull's racing driver, same mistake, just later on in the corner, later in the exit phase. That's where he went spinning. So all of them got it wrong. Then we had this from Mav Gardner only moments later. This was in towards Coca-Cola Ben, too wide versus the 96 there of Blankensteiner, and he lost the rear on the corner, and as he did so, well, of his own volition, cold tyres, and then had to hold the brakes, and that was definitely the scary and hairy moment there, as it almost went so very wrong. Now, how exactly did Kieran Sharp take the lead of this race back from Martin Blankensteiner? This was on lap number 5. It was. We did see what happened to Berkey and Chandler behind. Well, Sharp, meanwhile, was busy making haste to the lead, and this was on the inside in towards turn number 1. And in the end, Blankensteiner did not fight it at all. He let it go, respecting the fact, I think, that right now it's not worth trying to keep the Sim Racing Collective Esports car behind. It's probably worth more time instead focusing on trying to make sure you stay in that top 3. Well, we're back to live racing once again. 15 minutes still left on the clock. It's definitely been a bit of a disrupted race so far, but still, it's always a question in terms of what's the next part of the story, as Jamie Nuttall right now takes the place of Grilliker coming through the hairpin. I don't think Pavel Grilliker's quite out of this one yet, as meanwhile we look back to Arnslono, as it's 2x2 here. You'd think this was Noah's Ark, but it's nowhere near biblical, as they come out of turn 6 and 7, and it's going to be Salono battling here with Raymond van Zutphen as they come down towards the hairpin. These drivers on towards the brakes right now, and what's the answer going to be? Solano gets ahead as Kramer's tucks at the inside there of Van Zutphen. Lovely move from the DLR FP1 driver, and meanwhile right now you can see the fact that Otto Karras is on the back of this, and I think the Flying Dutchman right now is definitely wants to live up to his team name here and start to take flight and move it into that top 10 when he can. Albeit it may not necessarily be easy for him, as Petr Maskowski meanwhile a further 4.5 seconds back, as we do say hello there to Sludgler, who is talking about him in the YouTube chat. And meanwhile, as we do see the Red Bulls racing driver carry on in 12th at the moment, he's still got a bit more work to do here if he wants to make some progress. But back to Jamie Nuttall, and coming down towards turn number 1 they go. Well, Nuttall side by side with Wenzel, and well, who exactly is going to give way? Janos Wenzel, you can imagine he's going to try and outbrake Nuttall as much as possible, but the British driver there on the inside. And Wenzel this time, I think, deciding, you know what, I'm not going to be able to beat this. I think Nuttall's got it, but he probably wants to use Nuttall to get himself closer to that top 3. Because pace-wise right now, well, fastest lap of the race has been set by Kieran Sharp. It's a 38.96. He's the quickest everybody out there. He has opened what is a 3.5 second gap to Quinten van Bingenden. But meanwhile, these two, of what is Van Bingenden and Blankensteiner, they are on pace that's definitely a little bit slower compared to Nuttall. So I think the understanding is here from Wenzel, if he can use Nuttall to get close to these two, suddenly he has a chance for a podium. But we also do have some slowdown penalties that have been burned in the background by Samuel Kramers, and also for what is Patrick Matigowski as me. Well, oh, hold up! What exactly has happened there? That is Raymond van Zutphen. You don't normally end up parking there on the inside of turn number 6. And the Flying Dutchman, away, he's gone completely on around. He's going to give up the space there to what will be Matigowski in the Red Bulls racing machine. What exactly went wrong there for your 84 driver? That was a nasty one, and here's a replay. This was heading up the hill, coming out of 100R, and as he did so, oh, there was contact between himself and Karras, and in the end, as they came apart, well, Van Zutphen in the end ricocheting off of the side of his fellow rival's car, and into the barrier there. That's going to be a bit of a contentious one. What did that look like on board from Karras' perspective, I wonder? Well, coming out the corner, oh dear, well that camera angle not being too obliging for the Dutchman, to be fair. Some would argue based on that perhaps he leant onto what was Van Zutphen, and as a result that's what triggered the incident. But again, there's a whole host of angles to that one. Some could potentially say as well that Van Zutphen in the end pointed his car slightly over to the right, which you would to get onto the racing line for turn number 6, but that'll be for the stewards to take care of here. We're just in the commentary booth and with the cameras we have. But meanwhile, as our leaders push on, well, we do see here Van Bingenden now only was a tenth ahead of Blankensteiner, and well, Jamie Nuttall behind. He has halved that gap. In fact, he has slashed that gap so much he's reduced it by 75% in a single lap. Right now, Nuttall is not hanging around, and after finishing runner-up in race number 1, I think his minimum target in this one is to be runner-up in race number 2 as well, albeit with Blankenstein now fighting his teammates in front there. I think he'll be hoping that Dane is able to get on through it, and that way they'll be able to make it a 2-3 on that podium and help their team's championship campaign. Albeit Van Vingerdon right now making his 4.55, the widest it's been all day, but not when Blankenstein rides the apex there at turn number 9. That was risky, but he's going to go all in for it, and Van Vingerdon complete misses his braking zone, and now as they come through the chicane, now Van Vingerdon going defensive there, Nuttall outside to inside, and now the inside of 13, and I think the British driver here's got it done. As much of the defence was definitely stoic there for Van Vingerdon. In the end, it has been chiselled down by the two cracked racing machines, and now all they've got to do is try and break away, but that's not going to be easy. And Jan Svensson meanwhile catching up, so is Gulliker. They are all getting closer together, as we do have a slowdown penalty for Martin Blankenstein, and now I suspect that must have been at turn number 9 where he's cut over the curb for that. There's no other explanation from what I've been able to see, but right now Blankenstein will burn that slowdown penalty, and I'm sure he'll be on the radio to Jamie, his teammate, saying to him, Jamie, get off my backside, because of the fact right now I've got to burn a slowdown. If I don't, it becomes a hold penalty. It becomes a stop and go penalty in the pit lane that's worth the best part of a whole minute at this rate. So therefore he's got to burn that slowdown. That's why he's losing so much speed here. He does so, but suddenly he loses all those places. Oh, and it goes for Van Vingerdon. Van Vingerdon makes the mistake, and we saw one of our drivers make the same mistake there on the opening race. I think it was him as well, just going way too deep onto the entry curve there in towards turn number 1, and the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver pushes himself down to 5th place now. Meanwhile, further back, it's too wide here between Samuel Kremers and Otto Karras coming out of turn number 1 with none other than the machine that Mikko Estevez that is a lap down, trying to stay with them, but coming in towards that left-hander right now. Kremers going defensive, Karras looking around the outside, and Samuel Kremers right now rolling his way down the hill in towards what will be 100R, and well, around the outside Karras is going to try, but is it going to be easy? The answer is no. Samuel Kramer's right now in knowing exactly how to pitch this, going defensive into the hairpin. Well, wouldn't have thought he would have gone for that, to be fair, but he's worried that Karras is going to lunge it potentially, and we ride on board now looking back from the rear of your 374, but here comes Karras looking around the outside. He's got the overspeed, he's got the momentum, but now has he got the ability to somehow duke out the German driver? The answer is going to be no. He goes deep instead. Kremers can take his race in line and just simply hold on there in 9th place for now. And understanding Mikko Estevez is looking at this and probably thinking to himself, how exactly do I get involved to unlap myself? And well, the answer is he can't really unless the battling stops, because otherwise, well, you'd understand if Otto Karras immediately went to the shirts afterwards and said, why is he trying to unlap himself when I'm in the thick of a fight? It's a bit of a difficult one there, particularly when you are perhaps the faster driver of the trio, when you found yourself off a lap. As meanwhile, Maskowski there, that's at next bend. It's gone very sideways for him. Now, has he been aided on that adventure? Has he done it of his own volition? We'll find out in due course, but we've still got 9.5 minutes left to go. And whilst our leader may have checked out from this one, although it's never over until they get to the checkered flag, as we saw at Portimao. For Tom Davidson, right now at least, Jamie Nuttall, having got ahead of Jonas Wenzel, his target is purely thus, at this point, get away from Wenzel and try to hold on to second if he can, close the gap down to none other than what will be Kieran Sharp. But a 6.3 second gap right now, that is going to be far from easy when the relative pace comparison is that of half a second at most here, and Sharp right now knows he can afford just to back off and just simply play it safe. But we've had a total of hits for Otto Karras meanwhile off camera, so it's got wrong for the Dutchman as well, after it's all going so very much right. And well, as our drivers make the way on down here, we might be able to take a look back. In fact, we firstly get a replay of what exactly happened to Patrick Masagowski. So this was the Red Bull's racing driver coming up through 13 towards 14. As he made it up the hill, tried to get the brakes on, slid loose, then went to the curb on the outside. And at that point, the rear tyres, they had limited grip already. They had even less from touching the curb, and that's what sent him on out his way. We then had this for Otto Karras only moments later. This was down the start finish straight. And the Flying Dutchman drives so close to the wall here, he's practically pinned there. And in the end, contact between himself, and I believe that was side by side with Samuel Kremers, and it's sent Karras sliding on around to the barrier. And in the end, that car, you can see where it's dropped on the right-hand side due to the impact with the barrier. His race was done and dusted at a low speed. Well, the camera angle there suggests that perhaps Kremers came across to him, although Karras was going to run out of road eventually, given the way the straight, it widens down past the pit lane, and then it suddenly contracts going down towards turn number 1, and well, the semantics of that one are definitely going to be difficult, because understandably in the heat of the moment, Karras will be arguing that, well, he turned across me, but then it will also be argued back at him, well, you were fighting into a space that was going to disappear at some point. But both drivers there, I think right now we're looking back at that one afterwards and thinking, what could we have done better? But meanwhile, Nuttall and Wenzel are staying together, as Martin Blankenstein has definitely been dropped after we did see Blankenstein being passed by the pair a little bit earlier on. But right now, the 96 driver, knowing that whilst he's lost them, he's still got some pressure behind him, because Quinten van Vingerdon, the man who fought him in the early stages of this race, is encroaching very quickly on him. left hand of turn number 6. Right now, Van Wingenden, all he can do is see the target off in the distance and hope he's got enough time. Meanwhile, Pavel Grilica and Bobby Moss, they're now starting to get a bit close together. And Moss, of course, had a difficult start to his race, starting all the way up in what was none other than third place. With Nigel Mansell fan club drive up the inside here, goes all in. That's a big lunge on the brake, and he gets it stopped in time. However, the camera making you think he was going to outbrake himself, but not quite so. And Grilica in the end had not really any response to that, other than letting it go as they now come up through the final sector. Going over that right-hander in towards the left. We can definitely see the 555 driver right now under a little bit of pressure to make sure he instates the place. And, well, what he'll want to do is probably get himself to the best part of 7 to 8 attempts clear by the time they get up towards the start-finish straight. That's far from easy around here. The gap will open up to 4.5 attempts on the exit of Panasonic, but immediately now Grilica can be in the tow, and he can very gradually start to bring that gap down. He can reel the man in front of him in, but of course he builds that speed little by little. Gap now down to 3.5 attempts here, so attempts gained over the course of the first third of the straight. But is it going to be enough? The answer is probably going to be no here, unless Grilica goes to the mother of all sins up the inside. He does not. He stays where he is right now, and Bobby Moss, I think, will start to feel as though this position is now his. We will see whether that's going to be, as meanwhile, we do have a slowdown for what's one of our other drivers out there. So it's gone a bit wrong for other drivers further on back. So Maskowski has picked up an automated slowdown for track limits, and as for, I believe we've had an off for one of our drivers, but who exactly for? I think Janos Fens was just a brief excursion. In fact, yes, he has. We didn't quite catch it on camera. We believe it was at turn number 1. But what it has done is it's opened up the gap to Jamie Nuttall to what is the best part of 1.1 seconds. So Nuttall now feels though that he is going to be safe here to be allowed to chase after Kieran Sharp. Speaking of which, there is your race leader. Still leading this race quite comfortably at the moment. The gap now up to 6.6 seconds. There you see second and third in the camera shot. And then Martin Blankensteiner and Quinten van Wingenden never too far behind. And then you do see this growing group of 3 cars here, as Barcelona right now trying to recover after starting all the way in fourth place after his third place finish in race number 1. Where he right now would love to get past his teammate and then go hunting after Bobby Moss. He's got the pace to potentially make up places, but I think 6th might be the furthest he goes here today with the amount of laps and time remaining. Although never say never, because of the fact it only takes one mistake from a driver, and suddenly it could really open up the doors. You do see there Solona and Grilica swapping the placing around. That was definitely a rehearsed moment in the fact that both drivers are on the radio to each other, and the team on the radio as well, saying swap the cars around please, because right now Solona can chase down Moss. He has got the pace to do it. Grilica right now will tuck him behind Solona. He'll give him a brief bump draft here down the straight. You can see there he's got himself nicely nestled onto the rear bumper of his teammate, and he will just use the slipstream there to give him an extra couple of miles an hour speed down towards the braking zone, at which point about 300 metres of that braking zone he will loft off the throttle, so that way he has no risk of running into the back of his teammate because of the concertina effect under braking. That's what bump drafting is all about. When you're on a long start finish straight, you just want to gently tap the guy in front and then lift off well before the braking zone for turn 1 at Fuji, because otherwise if you don't and you all end up in the back of each other, the cars will be in absolute pieces. Looking a bit further down the order, we do come back to Mikel Estevez, who right now, credit where it's due to him, many drivers may have gone into the pit lane, towed it, and then when they realise they've gone a lap down, they may have retired the car. Not so for the 77 driver here. He's here to finish the race, as unfortunately we have had Otto Carrier come into that pit lane after that huge shunt between himself and Samuel Kramers, and well, I don't think we're going to be seeing that car go back out there today, but Estevez definitely so he's picked up 1 place as a result of that. As he comes out of turn at number 6 and down towards 7, 8, 9 he goes now. We know he can't really gain any places as such, as meanwhile Mav Gardner has been able to get back ahead of him, the 805 driver for Sim Racing Collective Esports, and he is a lap down on the field for the most part as well, and he's playing the game of pursuit. But his target would be this man, Leon Burki, who right now is not a lap down as of yet, but at risk of going a lap down potentially. And well, the Red Bulls Racing driver holding on to 13th at this time. But good to see, even though he's had difficult days or not quite on the pace, they're out there as well, keeping their heads down and delivering those laps time and time again. But coming back to the fighting that's going on, there's Blankensteiner in 4th, and then Van Wingenden behind. And right now you can see 4 cars here all together. The 2 TSRC label machines here making their way on down. But then we do have Solona and Grilica, the 2 other drivers from the other team, also get involved. But here's the swap positions. It's going to be Bobby Moss looks up the inside for the Nigel Mansell fan club. And well, these 2 cars in the same livery, definitely not working as teammates here. And in the end, Moss will take that place of Van Wingenden. But what can Solona do now? As he looks at this for the Kuzak's crew and thinks to themselves, right, well, if they're going to fight each other like this, I now need to try and find a way in. As we ride on board with your number 3 car, and coming through the long right-hander of 100R at the moment. The 2 apex to turns 4 and 5. He gets a lovely run out of there, but he's now going to have to wait just a little bit longer. He doesn't get the move in towards the hairpin. He's building himself up to something, and well, as he comes all the way down towards what will be turn number 10. Your Swedish driver right now in the draft, looking comfortable. But there's the door open there. Does he go for it? Under brake. I think he thought he was going to do it then. Given the fact that Van Vingerdon braking very early there, giving up Bobby Moss. But Slono just in the nick of time, not quite on the line, or not giving himself enough space to be able to do so. So therefore he's got to wait a little bit longer. Coming up the hill, and after this lap they will, we believe, have one more to go, as Kieran Sharp has yet to get onto the start for this straight. But Sloan looking around the outside there, now trying to figure out the switchback coming up the hill through what will be next. It's not going to work out, but this is all about positioning now before he gets ready to go on to the start for this straight for the penultimate time. Out to the corner he goes, a lovely exit there, but the two in front as well get a good run, and in particular Van Vingerdon with the direct slipstream off the back of Bobby Moss. This is going to play the game of everyone's getting the toe off the next guy in front, apart from the guy at the very front of the field. So this group will gradually condense together, but will it be enough here with the white flag now waving? Kim Sharp is on to one final lap in our second and final race of the day. Solono looking up the inside here, and well, he's got the gold opportunity to go for it. Does he go all in? He goes for one. Does he go for both? He tries to. And there's a little bit of contact there with Bobby Moss by the looks of things, but Moss holds his ground. And Solono moves up into 6th place, so lovely move for one of the positions. But now he knows he's got even more work to do here if he wants to take the other one. Meanwhile, it's absolutely blowing up at the front of the field in the fight for second place, because now Jamie Nuttall versus Janos Wenzel. Nuttall had broken away, and Wenzel has come back at him over the last couple of laps and has brought that gap right back down. So we'll wait to see what's to happen between them. And coming back to Moss, Solano, Van Vingerdon and Grilliker. Well, the Nigel Mansell fan club driver here just making sure right now that he holds on the most critical points. At turn number 10, if he can defend this, then all he's got to do is have a really good run out of Panasonic Bend, and he may be safe. And will Solano go for it? He brakes as late as he can. You can see how much the car's pitching forward there in the second of this order, but it's not enough as he makes his way up the hill now, and all Moss has to do at this point is not make any errors and get the best possible run he can out of Panasonic and pray to the finish line. Jamie Nuttall as well, as he comes out to net. He's got to do the same here versus Wenzel. Wenzel looking up the inside. He's going to go all in for his Janos Wenzel. And he does so there. And he takes a lot of apex curb. He almost loses it. But meanwhile, well, before we lose it, our leader coming through for Kieran Sharp. He's going to make it 2 from 2 here today. And the 100% win rate record continues for the British driver as he crosses the line. Your winner ahead of what will be Jamie Nuttall, who comes on home in second place after Wenzel's late mistake. For Martin Blankensteiner, it will evolve. And then we will see Bobby Moss hold on for 5th place, just ahead of Alan Solono, with Quinton Van Vingerdon in 7th place in the end, not quite doing enough to make his way on past what was Solono, but ahead of Pavel Grilliker. And then it will be Samuel Kramers, who comes on home to see what will be 9th place in the end. It's been a challenging race for him, but to be fair, a top 10 finish, subject to Stuart's inquiries, potentially about the contact between himself and Otto Karras, but he's done enough today to be inside that top 10 on the road at least, with Martin Foster 10th, just ahead of Raymond van Zutphen, who in the end could not quite take a top 10. And then we will see Patrick Masigowski finishing off those who are going to be finishing on the lead lap. Well, no, in fact, he won't be the last lead lap finisher. He will take 12th place, however, regardless, in the 971. And the Red Bulls racing driver will then be followed up by his teammates. He's got a little way to go yet on Leon Burkey as he makes his way through the uphill segment. And we have also had finishing what was a lap down. Well, Mikel Estes has already finished his race, but meanwhile Mav Gardner is also yet to finish, ladies and gentlemen, so let's give him a little bit of time. Perhaps all of our drivers do call them down, those who finished the race at least. What a race it has been. And Leon Burkini right now making his way out that final corner, and he's got a run to go then before the finish line, but he's going to be happy in he survived it, even if Fuji has proven to be a bit of a troublesome circuit for the Red Bulls racing team. But still, some circuits are like this, others are much more straightforward. But the number 13 will finish in 13th place, and then we will have Mav Gardner making his final round for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. And as he comes up the hill, well, right now, the Scottish driver here, 9, whilst race number 1 was a race of dreams, race number 2, meanwhile, has not quite been a dreamlike race. It's been more leaning towards a race of nightmares, but still, that's the way it goes. Sometimes it takes, sometimes it takes away. And as he calls them down, in fact, he has already finished the race, we should point out. He has been classified as a finisher. He doesn't need to reach the checker flag line this time. Well, 14th place will be the best he's able to achieve. As the circuit gradually falls silent, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any steward's inquiries. And as we can see in the end, after another 30 minutes of racing, albeit interrupted by an extended safety car period at the start for the turn 1 lap 1 incident, Kieran Sharp making it back-to-back wins for the Sim Racing Collective Esports by 7.6 seconds. Jamie Nuttall making it back-to-back runner-up finishes for the Cracked Racing trial. We gutted the fact he has not been able to put a dent into the Championship Leaders campaign, but the fact he's second best here today means that right now he keeps him honest. Jonas Svensson, third in the end of the privateer, tried to come back for the second place right at the end with a do-or-die lunging towards Panasonic Bend, but in the end, unfortunately, the apex curve of the corner catching him out. Still, a podium for him, just ahead of none other than Martin Blankensteiner, with the Cracked Racing driver in the end taking fourth behind the man who gained 12 places. For Martin Blankensteiner, meanwhile, it was all about holding on to places, which he lost to, but to be fair, a fourth and a fifth today, he's going to be happy about that. The Dane was then followed up by the Britain of Nigel Mansell fan club's Bobby Moss, with Arnsolano rounding off your top 6 there for Kuzak's crew, and then we do have none other than Quinten van Wingerden in 7th place at TSRC Esports, just ahead of Pavel Grilica. Samuel Kremers and Martin Foster completed your top 10, with the RPMS SimSport driver really having to go on a recovery drive today, and then we did see none other than 11th Raymond van Zutphen ahead of Patrick Masagowski, and then your last lead lap finisher was Leon Berkey. Mav Gardner was a lap down for the Sim Racing Collective Esports ahead of ZRT Momos, Mikel Estevez, who in the end, despite the damage to the car, did finish the race a lap down. And then we did see an unfortunate retirement for the Flying Dutchman's Otto Karis after his, what was a start-finish straight incident between himself and Samuel Kremers. And then we also did see retirements for William Chandler, Johanna Riffin, and Mitch Wollitson, with both Riffin and also Wollaston both end up in the pit lane before they could go racing. A technical issue with their cars, and unfortunately we lost them before they could go green flag. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our second and final race of the day here at the Fuji International Speedway. A great race, no doubt about it. All the drivers absolutely in fine form. But the big question mark is now, what have they got to say about it? Because whilst our circuit falls silent, there's no more racing action expected. We're not going to go quite silent on this broadcast just yet, because in approximately 5 minutes' time, we'll be back for post-round interviews of our drivers. What have they got to say? Well, stay with us. You'll find out very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today, we're going to be catching up with at least a couple of our drivers. Starting off, we're driving today for the Kukas crew, and I do believe I've been referring to the team name incorrectly throughout the whole of the day, and I do apologise for that, but we try to get it right, and we'll try and get that corrected for next round's broadcast. It all went around for him at the restart, but he joins me in the interview room right now. It is none other than Arn Solono. Good afternoon to you, Arn, and well, what a challenging day today for yourself. Qualifying, it looks so good. Second in qualifying, third in race number 1 after a pesky slowdown early on, and then despite a spin in race number 2, a 6th place finish. I mean, you've got to be happy with the racing, but I can imagine you're a bit disappointed in yourself.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, second race was a bit disappointment because of the spin, but I think P6 is a good recovery. But in first race, I didn't expect to be on the podium, but the pace was good. I didn't practice a lot for this race, but I'm happy with P3 in the first race.
Well, to be fair, if you're happy with the podium and surprise yourself a little bit, take us through qualifying then, because to be second in qualifying and only 3 tenths off of the pole time set by Kieran Sharp, I mean, were you shocked at that as well?
Yeah, I don't know how he was 3 tenths faster than me, but I was surprised that I am P2. I didn't expect that. I was thinking I can maybe be P7, P6, something like that. But yeah, P2 was a really good position for the first start, the first race.
Oh, fantastic. Now, in terms of the first race, we did see in the early stages a good start from yourself. You tried to put some pressure on Kieran, but it didn't quite work. And then a slowdown came in quite early on. It dropped you to third. What happened?
Yeah, that was the cold tires, I think. I got a little bit understeer the car. So I need to go wide there because otherwise I just spin. So yeah.
I see. So it didn't quite go right there, but what we then did get to see for the remainder of the race was you constantly chasing after Jamie Nuttall for the run-up spot. It looked as though at certain points you could get close to him, but when you got close, it was almost as if the dirty air off the back of his car just prevented you from being able to look for a move.
Yeah, exactly. This was very tough because he was fast. I have the dirty air. And in T1, I was like 2 tenths after him, but and then I was thinking it's not a good idea to dive bomb there, because I was trying to chase P1.
All fair play. So in the end, wasn't quite able to make it work, but still a third place. Great result, no doubt about it. And in race number 2, now of course, we had 2 race starts in race 2. The first one, by the time we cleared turn 1, we were already under safety car. Still a decent start from yourself, and then it all went a bit wrong at the restart.
Yeah, that was cold tires. I have cold tires, and I just overdrive the car in the turn 1. I was nearly to recover it, but I just lost it at the end.
Oh, it was unfortunate, but still, what we then got to see from yourself was some brilliant driving to finish 6th. And I mean, you weren't just taking it easy, you were battling hard out there, as we do see some of the footage of you trying to chase down spots, including fighting with none other than what was Kramer's midway through the race. How did you find fighting around here?
Yeah, it was really tough in the sector 3, but I was trying to get some space, and yeah, it was. I have just more grip than others in the 3 sector.
Oh, well, fair play.
That was why I just overtake them there.
Gotcha, that makes sense. A bit more grip and a bit more confidence in the car always does help. But towards the end of the race, we did see you then have to pick your way past the likes of Quinten van Bingerden, who made himself very wide. I mean, how did you find a way past him? Because he looked as though he could make his car wider than anybody's.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just lucky for me.
Oh, no worries. And well, in the end, a 6th place to go with your 3rd place. So some good points on the board. And now we look ahead to next time out. And of course, our next round being at none other than what will be the Sebring circuit in the US of A. What can we expect from you there?
I don't really like the Sebring track, especially in the Porsche Cup. But I will practice for the race. Maybe get another podium, P1 maybe. We will see.
All fair play. We keep us guessing, and we look forward to seeing what you can do there in a week's time. But just as we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
To my friend that was in the same race, Paweł Gryłka, his name is. Yeah, cheers for him.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm sure Pal will be grateful for the shout out, particularly when I do believe it's his first race of the series and he's absolutely enjoyed himself today. We've enjoyed seeing you out there as well, on. Congratulations on a podium, plus also sixth place in
Thank you.
race 2. We'll see you at Sebring in a week's time.
Thank you. See you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from none other than On Solono, and will absolutely enjoying himself today. Although surprised in 2 respects in qualifying. Firstly, the pace he was able to put together in qualifying to put himself second, but also the fact that Kieran Sharp was still 3/10 faster. However, he then proceeded to surprise himself with the podium in race number 1, despite the fact he had not had as much practice as he would have liked, although a bit gutted with the slowdown, just a small mistake in the end, understeering wide at a corner, but it's so easy to make such a mistake. And then in race number 2, where it all went a bit backwards, and he said there about the fact that he almost recovered it before the car completely came loose on him, but in the end, it just fell out of his hands. But still, what we got to see after that was some great fighting from the number 3 driver, and talking about there the fact that he picked up those places one by one. But Dirty Air was always going to be a challenge, and in the end, as he almost in a bit of contact there with one of the cars going a bit wayward. But either way, he survived the falls to come and rise through the field, and then bring home a 6th. He doesn't fancy Sebring too much, but he's going to give it his best shot and see if he can finish on the podium, if not bring on home a race win. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come, and we'll be right back for our second interview of the day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our second interview of the day, and joining me in the interview room is none other than Janos Wenzel. Good afternoon to you, Janos, and well, if there was an award for the driver who's made the most long-distance lunges in a single race of the championship, I think you would be the candidate for it, because you've been Mr. Attack every race today. You've had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, hi Paul, it was amazing. I had a lot of fun during both of the races, and actually really happy that I managed to like not crash it in the last one and make some metal out of it.
Oh, 100%. Now, let's dial it back a little bit to qualifying. 4th in qualifying, it was a good lap from yourself. Were you expecting to be towards the front of the field?
Yeah, I put in quite a bit of training over the last week, and I saw the lap times before and during training, and I was hoping to be there, but not really expecting, but I hoped for it.
Well, your hopes were answered, no doubt about it. And by putting yourself in that second row, we did see in race number 1 what looked to be a reasonable start to your race, to be fair, holding on to positions and fighting for them. But towards the end of the race, things went a bit wrong and you end up 15th.
Yeah, I caught a slowdown on the last lap and altered my lines to get better exits and like leave a bit of time on the entry, and yeah, the drivers behind didn't expect that, so I think it's also my fault that I got tagged and spun there. I drove a bit erratic. They couldn't I shouldn't have expected them to stay away on the last lap, so my fault, I think.
All fair play. Well, it's good that you've been able to have a think about it and sort of discuss what could be done better. But still, in the heat of the moment, we all do these things. But what we then got to see from yourself, of course, in race number 2 was an absolutely golden drive from 15th to 3rd. 12 places gained. I mean, were you a bit gutted when the safety car came out? Because I can imagine you're probably saying to yourself, I need the time. I need more time to chase these places.
Yeah, I was super confused when the safety car came out, actually. I thought, did I miss that the start was under safety car or something? Because it already came out in the first corner and there was like a huge chaos. And no, I was on the outside of all the chaos, so I was like feeling super lucky that I didn't get collected by it. So no, I was happy about it, I think. I needed a breather.
Oh, indeed. And just with regards to that, the fact that you went all the way around the outside, we saw a couple of drivers do it, yourself being one of them. We also saw William Chandler try and go all the way around. I mean, I can imagine these Porsche Cup cars, they're not the grippiest of machines. How did you find the grip out there on cold tyres?
Yeah, ask me that in the first race. I didn't in the first. That's why I spun like in the first lap. Yeah, I just overdid it there. And for the second race, I kept like a certain distance to the limit, so I don't repeat it again. But I think like after the first lap of driving those cars, the tires already built some good grip, and yeah, uh, I like it also a tiny bit oversteer the car, so I don't mind it that much.
All fair play to you. And when we restarted the race after the safety car, we did see several drivers lose it at turn 1. I mean, there was no second safety car, but I can imagine you probably sat there thinking to yourself, right, if they can all just keep doing this, I'll be up taking the win at this rate.
Yeah, I made like I think 3 places through people spinning in the first lap after the safety car, and but the tires were super not grippy during the first lap because they were actually colder compared to when you come out of the pits. So I think that's why people got caught out of it. But yeah, the first I think 4 laps after the safety car were not enjoyable at all. I had like the worst cramp ever in my right foot on the throttle pedal or screaming on the straights. But like it's around lap 8 that cramp like got away, and I was able to hold on to Jamie Nuttall in his toe, just like trying to stay with him, and yeah, managed to do that.
Well, you managed to stay with him for the majority of the race, and we did see at one point where Jamie was able to break away, but in the last couple laps, you really closed the gap back down and even went for a cheeky move up the inside on the final quarter of the final lap.
Yeah, I had to try something, right? Like after, if I didn't, I would have asked myself, was there an opportunity? And also, I knew that there was like a big gap behind me, so as I didn't spun or crashed us out, there was not like a big risk on it. But yeah, during the middle of the race, I think Jamie started to overdrive the car a little, so that's the only reason I managed to like keep up, stay clean, and get into the tow. And yeah, also like you learn a lot when you see other cars driving in front of you. So yeah, really enjoyed that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, glad you enjoyed yourself so much today. And naturally, that brings me on to Sebring in a week's time. What can we expect from you there when we return to our 60-minute race?
Ooh, yeah, I like the track. I never drove it actually in iRacing yet, so I have to buy it, I guess. But it's like from other simulations, I always loved this track. So I don't want to get the hopes up too high, but I'll be doing some training.
Oh, fantastic. Well, hopefully, whilst we're not going to expect too much of yourself, hopefully we'll get to see you up there fighting for glory once again. And just before I do let you go, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the stream?
Yeah, the whole TSRC team that I'm now part of, like since a few weeks. And yeah, I think that also got me a lot of motivation. So yeah, keep it up, and I will be racing here for a long time.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll leave it there. Congratulations to you today on what was a brilliant qualifying session and also a recovery drive to a podium in race number 2. Even if race 1 didn't quite work out, you've had a lot of fun out there, and that's what we love to hear. We'll see you at Sebring in a week's time, but until then, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, I will. You too, and thank you for your great streams. That will be the first thing I'll be watching now.
No worries. It's my pleasure. You take care.
Take care, bye bye.
So here in there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy Janos Wenzel, the privateer in the end. And congratulations to him for joining the Sim Racing Collective Esports team, albeit not racing as part of them for this series, racing as a privateer, but still, he's had a very happy day in the office today, no doubt about it. And well, talking out there the fact that qualifying, he'd put the practice in and so was expecting to be up there. But in race number 1, a spin cost him dearly, a bit of a mistake towards the end of the race, but the reverse being true in the 313 machine, and the fact that after was the restarted race number 2, He was able to make some rapid progress, albeit aided by the spins for a couple of cars, gaining 3 places at turn 1 on the restart, but after that went to work. And in talking about the fact that as he got close to Nuttall, he had to lose out a little bit, as he in the end found that Nuttall had pushed his tyres a little bit too hard, and that's what brought him back. And like he mentioned, I had to go for it into the final corner. There was no point not going for it. It didn't work out, but he made sure to balance the risk versus reward and not go too aggressively to take them both out. He only put himself at risk, and that's a driver who definitely right now, who has a sense of balance in his racing, and I suspect it's not going to be long before we see Janos Wenzel A, back on the podium, but B, potentially on the top step of it. But we'll have to see what he can do at Sebring. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that is the conclusion of our interviews for today. We had a lovely chat with 2 of our drivers, and let's give you a quick recap of who we've spoken to. For as we can see, we started off by speaking to the Cookhouse crew driver of Arn Solono, the man who took the run-up spot in qualifying and also podium in race number 3 and did very well to recover in race number 2. And then we did hear from the priority of Janos Wenzel in the 313 only moments ago, where after a decent qualifying session, race number 1 wasn't something to shout home about, but race number 2 most certainly was, and he definitely enjoyed himself out there. Congratulations to both drivers in the end for their great performances today, and a huge thank you to them both for joining me in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more racing from themselves at what will be Sebring in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Collective or how you can be on the grid for this series or any of our other ongoing series throughout 2026, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you go to our official website, and there's at www.tsrc.club. And if you do head there, as shown on screen, well, you've got a link straight in the dead centre to the beating heart of the community. It is our official Discord. Join it, and you can get involved with all the staff, the admins, and our fellow drivers and members. And we do have all of our socials on the left-hand side there, from SimGrid all the way through to the Discord once again. At the bottom, our partners and affiliates, and at the very top there, you've got links to our news pages, plus also our rules if you want to go racing with us. We'd also like to offer you the opportunity, if you don't want to go to our website, or perhaps you don't necessarily want to go to what is none other than our Discord, where you do have the option of following us on social media, particularly on Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/TSRC_official, where there you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements and all things TSRC. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our partners and affiliates, who include Tam Livery, SimGrid, Coach Dave Academy, and over at C Simulation and Motorsport. And we'd also like to give a shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division, and a huge thank you to them for recognising us here at the Sim Racing Collective as a recommended community, and long may that continue throughout 2026. But now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the question is, what awaits us next time? Well, next time out, and round number 3 on Sunday, the 22nd of February 2026, we'll be making our way to the United States, particularly for the Sunshine State of Florida, and it will be at the old Hendricks Army Airfield, where we'll see our drivers take flight and look to try and see who has the right to take victory in a 60-minute feature race. Kieran Sharp right now has 3 wins from 3. Can he be stopped? Jamie Nuttall seems to be the man who's the closest to him on pace, with a few of their rivals absent on the grid today and hopefully back next week. You can imagine right now, only time will tell, and we've seen many a rising star here today, including none other than Janos Wenzel and also Arn Solono. So who exactly is going to be the one to take victory at Sebring? Find out then. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we have been the Sim Racing Collective, and if this Porsche Cup racing has got your appetite whetted, do keep in mind as well, it's not just racing at Sebring next weekend that we've got on offer, because we do have 2 special events coming up, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about those, including, of course, our Japanese Sprint one-off special event on Monday, the 23rd of February. That's going to be at 8 o'clock in the evening. A one-off. There's no risk, but there's plenty of reward there to have fun in the Toyota GR86 Cup cars around the Suzuka Racing Courses East layout. And indeed, we're going to be bringing you all the racing live from circuit side in that one. And a little bit later on this year, we also, if you're a big fan of the Ford Legends Coupe, well, we've got you covered, because on Monday, the 9th of March 2026, we'll have the Battle of the Legends as well. And indeed, we've got plenty going on here at the Sim Racing Collective, but what's going down in the Porsche Cup Championship, of course, is our trip to Sebring in a week's time. You've got to be there to believe it, but until then, we have been the TSRC. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.